So in broad daylight, a man is shot dead in his place of business on a busy street.
I knew as soon as I saw it. I knew he was gone.
Just 2 blocks behind me, Bob Eidman was found robbed and murdered.
Bob Eidman was shot 3 times. That third shot is being an execution.
I just all the way there saying, no, 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 Bob, no, Bob.
There were just floods and floods of police cars coming in and just total chaos.
We're with the Major Case Squad.
They only have 5 days, so the clock is ticking.
Diane found out on the site that her husband had been murdered.
Yes, she did.
She makes this statement, something like this has happened before.
There were numerous individuals who could have done something such as this.
He asked me a question that just kind of floored me. He said, "We're trying to find out about your brother's lifestyle."
What is it like to all of a sudden learn that there's this whole other secret part of his life?
People are going to find out some stuff they're probably not going to like.
June 8th, 2007 was a typical day in St. Charles. It was a sunny day, and I was proceeding southwest here on First Capitol Drive.
So it was about to break 80 degrees on this Friday morning around 11 a.m. And as Officer Dean Meyer's patrol car is making its way toward Interstate 70, a mail carrier was on her rounds too. This security video showing her dropping off mail at a strip mall grocery store, then driving her truck a few doors down to enter the office where Bob Eidman sold car insurance. Nobody heard her first scream.
Our mail carrier was running up the street, and she was flailing her arms, and she was yelling for the police.
Deborah Kennedy was the first person to hear those desperate cries and tried to catch up with her as the mail carrier ran into traffic on the busy road before Officer Meyer spotted her.
I saw the mail carrier running up the hill with the phone in her hand.
Stop, please stop! There's a man, I'm delivering the mail right now, he's lying on the floor with blood all over him.
I asked what's going on, and she said Bob was laying on the floor and he had blood on his face.
And she tries to investigate what's going on. She goes into Bob's office and gets the shock of her life.
I went inside to see if I could help him. And when I walked in, there was plenty of blood. I watched his chest didn't move. I knew as soon as I saw it. I knew he was gone. Let me breathe for a second.
It was St. Charles's first murder of 2007. And right from the start, it was the kind of thing that just isn't supposed to happen here. That's because St. Charles, Missouri is an idyllic bedroom community. It's just over the bridge from St. Louis with a historic downtown and historic values as well. I guess the idea is that you're supposed to shed the stress of the big city as you come across the wide Missouri River and land here. But as we know, money woes, lies and rage and desperation, the grip of fear, they do not stop at the river's edge.
Now we've got a whole team of officers from the St. Charles Police Department. They've converged on the scene of Bob Eidman's murder.
There were just, floods and floods of police cars coming in and just total chaos.
Immediately I responded to the area, to the scene. Bob is laying on the floor between the 2 desks. He's laying on his back, and there's a pool of blood around his head.
Bob Eidman was shot 3 times. The first shot was superficial. It was a grazing wound to his chin. The second shot was to his neck, shoulder area, which knocked him down.
According to St. Charles homicide detective Don Stepp, the third and fatal shot had been fired through Bob Eidman's left eye as the assailant stood over his prone body.
I would definitely classify that third shot as being an execution.
This was an insurance office, and it was a fairly open area. We collected bullet casings, bullets, bullet fragments. We would mark the position, set up little yellow tents called photo markers. We would photograph it. We dusted for fingerprints. You're hoping that maybe you will find one fingerprint that may lead to a particular suspect.
Police are seeking out anyone who might have spotted something that morning in Bob's office. With her office directly below Bob's, Deborah Kennedy didn't see anyone, but she might have heard something.
I think it was probably around 10:30 or 11 o'clock. A friend of mine had come in. You know, I heard a couple noises, and we both kind of looked at each other, and then I heard a big thud on my ceiling. And we're kind of like, what the heck, is Bob doing up there? And so, being the way I am, I yelled up through the rafters, hey, Bob, keep it down. I'm trying to work down here.
We came to the conclusion that those loud bangs that she heard was the gunshots in Bob's office.
Police quickly worked to gather information about the victim. His name is Bob Eidman. He's 48 years old. He was married for a very long time, had no children, and worked in the insurance industry.
But just recently, like the past 2 years, had just started this new company. He'd got like a franchise. He just started that on his own.
As news begins to spread that something bad has happened at Bob's office, concerned friends and associates in the insurance business, they rush to the site, like the longtime colleague who asked that we call her Dana. What made you want to go over there?
That's my friend. I wanted to make sure he was okay. I remember locking up my office. I had a client in there, and she saw how distraught I was. And I'm just in the car, just all the way there saying, no, Bob.
What happened when you got there?
Of course, they're spectators, so someone said that someone got shot. Didn't see Bob, didn't see him waving in the window, didn't see any sign of him at all. And then when they took his body out of the office, we knew it was Bob's body because he was a big guy.
What's that moment like?
Oh my goodness. It was the worst.
Local reporters have arrived on the scene as well. Those reporters notice that a woman pulls up, and it turns out that she is the now widow of Robert Eidman. Her name is Diane, and Diane approaches the reporters, asking them if they know what's happening. And the reporters are saying that they feel uncomfortable telling her about her husband, so they direct her to the police.
But Diane said that she hadn't heard from Bob all day, which was odd, and she kept trying to call him, and he never answered the office phone. So when she shows up and seen all the police cars, she knew something had happened, and she identified herself.
Diane found out on the site, didn't she, that her husband had been murdered?
Yes, she did.
As investigators comb the area looking for video of any potential suspects, they happen upon this grocery store just a few doors down from Bob Eidman's office. Inside, they take note of the security camera that captured the mail carrier earlier that morning. It was right about there, pointed directly towards the front door. Once they get a look at the video it recorded, it's the first big break in the case.
Police believe Eidman was working alone when someone walked inside his business, fatally shot him, then took off.
Insurance agent Bob Eidman is dead, shot to death in his office along a busy thoroughfare near the interstate in St. Charles, Missouri.
We are west of the city of St. Louis, which most people kind of relate that to the Arch.
They are just separated by a river, so just hop on the bridge and you're in St. Charles.
And like this town's famous Christmas tradition celebration and their lively Oktoberfest, murder comes but once a year.
St. Charles averages about 1.5 homicides a year.
It's a pretty peaceful community, and people look out for each other.
A cold-blooded murder is not something St. Charles is known for, and the local cops will probably need some help with what looks like a big investigation. So they appeal to a special group for help.
A request was made to notify the Major Case Squad.
And they contact other departments that are in our area, and they send detectives that assist us.
More than 30 detectives with the Major Case Squad are now looking for his killer.
This elite Major Case Squad has a very high rate of success. 80% of their cases are solved. But with all this manpower, there's one catch. They only have 5 days to get the job done. So the clock is ticking.
They're coming from all other agencies. At some point, they need to get back to theirs.
The police canvassed First Capital right there in front of the shop.
How you doing?
Hi, what's up?
We're with the Major Case Squad, and we're investigating a homicide that happened here Friday afternoon.
Asking, did you notice something on June 7th?
And then you can see in the distance those apartment houses. You talked to all the people who lived in those apartment houses too, didn't you?
Every door was knocked on multiple times until we got contact.
And could one part of Bob Eidman's line of work have put him in jeopardy?
Robert Eidman's specialty in the insurance company was dealing with high-risk drivers, individuals that could not get insurance through traditional places, people that had prior traffic violations.
He wasn't taking checks because apparently those had been bounced, and this is back in the day when checks were a thing.
But his good friend and insurance colleague Dana, she felt Bob was taking too great a risk with the form of payment he did take.
So he would accept cash against a lot of people who advised him not to take cash.
Though he was known for accepting cash, he doesn't have a safe. Instead, police learned Bob would put the cash he received from clients into a far less secure place.
There was a drawer in Bob's desk that was locked, and you'd have to use a screwdriver to manipulate the lock to be able to open it.
When police managed to open the drawer and they checked the cash box, oh, there's money inside, about $200.
There was no forced entry, but it could have absolutely been a robbery. I know one of the things they were looking for was Bob's wallet missing.
And you're looking for anywhere that somebody might have thrown something, like Bob Eidman's wallet.
From the top of the roof, all through the grass, ditches, sewers, everywhere. We could not find the wallet. The wallet's going to be 90% of the time in a man's back pocket.
And to get that wallet out, you would have had to struggle between the wallet and the inside of the pants, which caused some friction. I recommended that we cut the pants pockets out and send them to the crime lab. We just thought maybe a sample of skin cells could be found inside Bob's pocket.
When we touch something or brush up against something, some of our DNA is transferred to the other object. If they're located, those skin cells can be broken down into DNA.
So you were checking for DNA everywhere else, but this was just kind of out of the blue. You just thought, well, you know, we might as well give this a try.
Yes, sir. It was the first time that I'd ever heard of anybody's pants pockets getting cut out.
While one team is feverishly working to gather physical evidence, another team is talking to anyone they can find, talking to family, friends, anything that will help them glean information about Bob Eidman.
Bob was a big teddy bear. He was friendly, he was bubbly. He called me Wild Woman. I think it has something to do with my hair. It grew on me.
Bob was a funny little guy, and I say little meaning that I think he was probably about 5'4", 5'6".
If we were going to say what size personality he had, like small to large, where would you put him on the scale there, Pam?
I'd say extra large.
His persona was just so, hey, you guys see me? I'm here.
How would you describe his relationship to authority growing up?
Not good. He defied authority with regularity. He had to go to summer school every summer. In fact, my parents tried to bribe him and said, hey, if you can graduate from high school in 4 years, we'll give you a car. He's like, show me the car first.
We were in high school together. Bob was pretty forward. He liked to talk to the ladies and hang out and visit. Then he met Diane, and he fell in love with her, and they were real close.
I believe Diane and Bobby made a fantastic couple. I really liked Diane. She'd put Bobby in his place. Bobby say something smart, she'd say something smart right back at him.
She was taller than him. I don't think it really mattered to him at all.
He ended up getting some lifts, so he felt like he was as tall as his wife.
Bob and Diane had been married for 20 plus years. They did not have any children.
So instead, his office featured photos of the muscle cars that he loved, while under his desk, he kept a copy of the Dreamgirls CD. He finally got to be his own boss, but there were great challenges, weren't there?
Yeah, he started talking like, well, the business isn't doing so good. I haven't had that many people come in.
He kept saying, you know, if I don't make this in the next couple months, I'm not sure.
I might go under.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to make it.
Think about all that financial stress. At least one person thinks it was taking a terrible toll.
I thought he committed suicide.
You thought he was so despondent that he might have taken his own life.
I did.
Remember that video camera in the grocery store next to Bob's, pointing toward the street in front? Police have been poring over the footage, and now they may have found something of interest. There, that white car.
At 10:50 a.m., you see the vehicle drive past the front doors, and 4 minutes later, you see it drive past the front doors, I believe a little slower, and almost like creeping along looking for something.
Was this driver making sure the coast was clear?
It wasn't the greatest picture, I remember that. It's always frustrating when you can't identify the people inside the vehicle.
One thing we can tell is a white four-door vehicle. Luckily,
I'm impressed you can tell it's a four-door vehicle. It looks like a white car. But it turned out the small St. Charles Police Department had a car maven.
we have an individual at the time that could almost identify almost any type of vehicle. He was a big car guy. He said it was a Ford Focus.
Like, I like cars, but honestly, wow.
We're kind of looking at this several different ways. Is he having problems with a customer with a white Ford Focus?
The bad news is that in St. Charles County, there are 1,300 Ford Focuses. In the state of Missouri, there are 5,000.
5,000 is a big number to have to deal with.
But they're not finding anything suspicious until a gift-wrapped lead suddenly falls into their lap. A white car is crashed and abandoned nearby. And get this about the driver.
He had bloody clothing on. Why has he got Bob's business card? I hope this is it.
A mail carrier found Eidman's body shot several times inside his Brook Auto Insurance Agency at about 12:30 Friday afternoon.
So in broad daylight, a man is shot dead in his place of business on a busy street. I'm sure it did strike fear.
I don't understand why somebody would kill somebody right here.
It was such a senseless killing that nobody really understood what was going on.
I didn't want to go back to work the next morning. I wanted to get the heck out of Dodge. I wanted to get out of town.
Police here in St. Charles, Missouri still had no motive, no witnesses, and no way to quell the rising fear of the St. Charles community. Fear and anxiety that grew even more after 3 men broke into a bowling alley, took $700, and tied up the janitor in the process.
2 men wearing masks and carrying guns rob a St. Charles bowling alley.
Well, here is proof they had a gun, a bullet hole left in the office windows. They busted in through the back door, shot up the office, tried to shoot open a safe.
Geographically, it was just down the street from Brooks Insurance.
And it was a bowling alley that we all bowled at, so at first we all thought it was tied together.
So people wondered if there was a connection between the 2 robberies.
And we looked at that, seeing if they were connected. And in the course of that investigation, we were able to eliminate it from being a part of this case.
Police are knee-deep in Bob Eidman's murder investigation, and they come upon a really interesting scene. It's an abandoned, crashed white car. And when they track down the owner, well, there's a couple of really eye-popping pieces of information.
He had bloody clothing on, and he also had one of Robert Eidman's business cards. Why does he have bloody clothing? Is it his blood? Is it Bob's blood? We have some questions we need answered. This could be it.
It blew my mind, like, whoa.
Travis Wade Ensley is about to blow a lot of minds at police headquarters. where leads in Bob Eidman's murder have been hard to come by.
The car that I wrecked was a white four-door Saturn.
Which might have looked like the car that was captured on the footage.
The next thing I know, I'm at St. Charles Police Station getting questioned for murder.
Police now feel that he has a lot of explaining to do. So as Travis recalls, his story goes kind of something like this.
I needed new insurance on my car. My buddy's like, check this guy out, and called him up, gave me good rates. And then like a week later, I had been out, had a couple drinks. Okay. I wound up wrecking my car right by my apartment. My airbags deployed and it knocked the sense out of me, and I like staggered down the hill, like right to my apartment, didn't remember nothing.
Okay.
Next day I woke up, I walk out my door, my car's not there.
So Travis calls police to report his car as stolen, but then is stunned to suddenly find himself a potential person of interest in a murder.
I was scared to death.
They were coming at you.
Yeah, they were coming at me pretty good.
Travis has what seems like a likely story about why there's blood on a shirt. He said that when he crashed his car, he got a bloody nose. Cops will check out his story, so they're not quite ready to clear him.
And they went and looked into certain, my alibi and this and that. They're like, okay, yeah, he's not the guy.
Now, police turn their attention closer to home, to Bob Eidman's widow, Diane. It is quite routine for police to look at the spouse of someone who's been murdered.
When Bob's wife, Diane, was advised that Bob had been murdered in his office, she didn't have a great reaction.
While Diane does appear to be upset in this photo, some detectives at the scene felt she was not overly emotional.
I don't want to say it didn't seem like a surprise to her, but she wasn't reacting in a manner that I thought a wife would react when they found out their husband was shot.
That struck me, and I'm sure several detectives, as unusual.
Is she in shock? Is she in denial? Is she involved in this?
Then there's Detective Stephanie Kaiser. Already a veteran sex crimes investigator, Kaiser was respected for her sensitivity and understanding with victims.
That would be completely normal in a shock situation like that. There is no such thing as a one-size-fits-all when you're talking about trauma, because to be able to process that would take some time. They're moving slow, they can't think, so I make nothing of that behavior.
Now Detective Kaiser is about to become the St. Charles Police Department's Diane Whisperer.
Diane Eidman became my lead. Right. We were assigned to take her from, sadly, the scene.
Diane wants to go to Bob's parents' home so that she can break the terrible news to them. And during that ride, Diane talks about how she is the manager of the kitchen at the local hospital, and she also offers more information about her beloved husband.
She says that there was financial problems.
When you say financial problems, what do you mean?
I mean, they were having a tough time paying bills. According to Diane, there wasn't much cash coming in. The business itself was struggling.
Detective Kaiser continues talking with Diane, and she makes a note that Diane seems incredibly forgetful. She can't remember her own Social Security number. And then the detective asks her about any existing insurance policies.
She was up front that, yes, I have a life insurance policy through work.
Diane initially gave us an answer that she thought they had a couple of small policies, approximately $5,000.
Not much, right?
Not much.
So Diane was pretty direct with me. I think she'd had a lot of questions asked of her and then just kind of tells me boldly, I did not do this.
These conversations with Diane will shape and reshape the police investigation into Bob Eidman's murder. At the end of that first day, Diane sounds like every other resident of St. Charles. She is terribly afraid.
It's just dawning on her, wait, I'm not safe either. I have to act and get her extra patrol, and I did. But you have to still go where the evidence leads.
And no one knows yet where that evidence will lead, especially in the wake of the very first astonishing story that Diane Eidman tells Detective Kaiser, with words that will be ringing in lots of heads at police headquarters.
One of the first things she says is, don't take this as a confession or anything, but this happened to my dad too. Has her father been murdered and her husband murdered as well? Has lightning struck this woman twice?
She makes this statement, don't take this as a confession, but something like this has happened before. And I'm not quoting Diane at this point, but somebody broke into the house and shot my dad. So when I asked, did they catch the person?
How did she answer that question?
She said, they thought my mom shot my dad.
And we're wondering if lightning had struck twice in the same place.
Diane Bowling Eidman, seen here on her wedding day in 1978 with her father Jerome, was just 26 years old when he was murdered inside the home he shared with his wife Lenore, Diane's mother. The murder case that made headlines in this region all began when a call came through in the wee hours on the morning of April 6, 1984. Gordon Adams was an officer with the St. Louis County PD. What went out over the radio when you heard the call?
As I recall, like I say, it came out as a home invasion with someone shot. And so that's what we would consider a hot call. Well, when I arrived, it's 2:30 in the morning, maybe 2:35. So it's dark as can be. I immediately went to the door, knocked on the door, and Lenore answered. And the hair is pristine, and she's standing there in a kind of sheer nightgown. And she says, my husband needs help. He's in the bedroom. He's been shot.
What are you thinking when you're hearing this story for the first time?
I mean, she didn't strike you as a woman who woke up in the middle of the night to find her husband murdered. No tears. The hair was all done. And I'm trying to get information for my report. And she actually lit up a cigarette. I'm thinking, this is your husband. He's just been murdered. She didn't have any emotion at all, almost.
David Barron was a detective with the St. Louis County Police assigned to the case. So Lenore Bowling was asserting that an intruder had come into the house, somehow found her husband's service revolver, used that service revolver to kill him, and then left.
That's what she was saying.
How did that strike you as a plausible story, given your years of experience in law enforcement?
It was an improbable set of circumstances. And to throw into that, the garage door was open about a foot.
Okay, that garage door over there was open a foot.
And the inside garage door, leading it from the garage into the house, is the only door in the house that did not have a deadbolt.
Diane's mother had told police she believed she was being stalked in the days prior to the shooting by a black male driving a black car who'd been leaving notes at their home. And there was a note found at the crime scene.
Well, the last note that was found at the scene said, "This is for you, pig, for what you did to me." No, I made a canvass later on in the neighborhood. No one saw a black male in a black car dressed in all black.
Lenore Bowling was charged with the murder of her husband. She pled not guilty, and while she was awaiting trial, she moved in with Bob and Diane.
How did Bob feel about living with someone who was accused of shooting her husband to death?
Bob was not happy about that.
He was scared.
Yeah,
he would go to bed every night and say would bolt his door, lock it closed. He did not. He was afraid. He didn't want to be in the house with her.
After that fateful night, this saga ending here in the fall of 1985. Diane Eidman's mother, Lenore Bowling, on trial for capital murder in the death of her husband, Diane's father, Jerome Bowling. Lenore Bowling found not guilty of her husband's murder.
They did not believe that she did it. They believed her story.
The irony not lost on investigators as Diane Eidman, more than 20 years later, now a person of interest in a different killing.
Has her father been murdered and her husband murdered as well? What a weird set of circumstances.
But it was something else Diane Eidman told investigators about her own husband that they said gave them pause.
During Diane's initial interview, she was asked if there was any insurance policies. Diane said that she thought there was one policy, and she thought it was just a small policy, approximately $5,000.
She describes that she has a life insurance policy through work. She's not sure about the details on that.
I was contacted by an insurance company and told that there was additional policies for Robert Eidman that we were not made aware of that were quite substantial in size.
Now with Bob's death, police say she was suddenly in line to receive more than $300,000 in life insurance.
We did not know if Diane had forgotten to tell us about those policies. Did Diane know about those policies?
And as they start looking deeper into Bob Eidman, they make a mind-blowing discovery. This man was leading a double life.
And then the commander of the Major K Squad asked me a question that just kind of floored me. I had no idea.
I went to Bob's funeral, and it was sad to see him there. I didn't expect to go see my friend in a casket, and I felt horrible for his wife and his family.
Bob's older brother by 21 months. Glenn Eidman grew up as a straight-A student, and he was a frequent target of Bob's verbal barbs.
How did he feel about you being a policeman? He made fun of me a lot. He did not like that. Wasn't big on police. He got in trouble growing up.
Glenn always believed that Bob was his mother's favorite. Even so, he said he was not prepared for what he says she asked him to do as they attended Bob's funeral.
At his funeral, my mom was confined to a wheelchair. She was in very poor health. So she goes, "How could somebody do this to my boy?" I said, "Mom, I don't know. I don't know why." She goes, "Well, I want you to find those people. I want you to kill them." And I said, "That's not how this works. You know, I'm a police officer. I can't do something like that." But she was very devastated, and literally 3 months after his death, she died.
She just lost her will to live.
It was kind of a rough year, for sure.
I went up to the funeral and seen Diane, and she was broken up, but I didn't ask a lot of questions.
She never really said a whole lot. She really didn't say a lot about anything. She was pretty quiet.
I was just watching Diane and just grieving with her. And I noticed there was a large police presence, and I just thought that was odd for a funeral. But if they suspect the murderers to be there, then they were there for a reason.
At the time of Robert Eidman's funeral, we set up surveillance and we recorded video of the attendees at the funeral, as well as obtaining the guest book for the services.
Police check out every name on the funeral registry. It takes them nowhere. Meanwhile, it's day 4 of the Major Crimes Task Force investigation. The clock is ticking, but still no good leads on who killed Bob Eidman.
We were striking out. There was no one that could really come up and say, Bob's having a problem with anyone.
But then the Major K Squad does a deep dive into Bob's email, his phone and computer records. They're searching for any hidden clues. They make a discovery they're eager to know a lot more about, just as Glenn comes in for his interview.
You know, they put me in an interview room to ask me some questions. I said, you know, I have nothing to hide. You don't have to play these games. You know, ask me whatever you want. And he asked me a question that just kind of floored me. He said, "We're trying to find out about your brother's alternative lifestyle." I said, what alternative? He goes, his affairs. You know, I go, you think he's out picking up women? I mean, that just ain't happening. And he's like, your brother was gay. I had no idea.
We had no idea.
We did not know that.
Turns out this long-married insurance agent was leading a secret double life.
While we were analyzing Bob's computers and it was discovered that he was visiting male-on-male websites were sexual in nature, and he was making contact with some of these places. Sometimes in these murder investigations, as we dig into them, you find a lot about a person's life, their lifestyle.
When you have a secret, what vulnerability does that give someone like Bob Eidman?
Anytime somebody has a secret and somebody knows it, and you're keeping it a secret for a reason, people can use that as leverage to get their way if they want to blackmail you or extort you.
As investigators continue searching through Bob's phone records, they find something else noteworthy. One phone number keeps popping up, belonging to a man from out of town.
They had an intimate relationship. They would rent a hotel room somewhere and visit each other. Automatically, a flag gets raised.
What is it like to all of a sudden learn that there's this whole other secret part of his life that you knew nothing about?
It was upsetting. I guess I felt he should have been able to talk to somebody about that. He shouldn't have had to hide that life. He shouldn't have had to lie. Having a relationship and being gay that's just part of life. And I wish he would have been able to share that with us. Yeah.
How you doing?
Police bring in this secret lover for questioning. They can't help but wonder, would this man have a reason to murder Bob? And what about Diane? Could his existence have set her into a murderous rage?
We've altered the man's voice.
People are going to find out some stuff they're probably not going to like.
Feelings can run wild with someone. If I can't have you, nobody's going to have you. It gives people motive.
And as a young, untested detective is taking on his very first big murder case, a totally unexpected assist from the cutting edge of forensic science, it's going to take this investigation into surprising territory and bring answers at last to the key question: why was Bob Eidman killed?
It blew my mind when the results came back. It was the golden ticket. This is what we were looking for.
Two blocks behind me, Bob Eidman was found robbed and murdered. Diane found out on the site that her husband had been murdered.
Yes, she did.
She makes this statement, something like this has happened before. Somebody broke into the house and shot my dad.
It absolutely crossed everybody's mind that this was kind of a copycat murder.
I've told her, hey, your husband's been killed. Your marriage is about to be put under a spotlight.
We discovered that Bob was having an affair.
She had found out that he was having an affair with another man, and that she was very angry about that.
They'd had an argument about that.
Diane was asking, are you telling me my husband's gay?
This is one of those bizarre cases where all the evidence seems to be pointing in one direction, then suddenly the rug is pulled out from under you, stunning everyone.
I was very shocked.
We cut open the pocket, swabbed the edges, hoping to get possible DNA. And the next day, State gave me the name.
I was sitting in the same room with the person that shot and killed my brother.
Friends and family are mourning the loss of Bob Eidman, gunned down in his office in a small strip mall in St. Charles, Missouri.
A man that loved life, always wanted to have fun, always wanted to enjoy himself. He had a great personality, very funny, very intelligent.
You know, he seemed like a nice guy, but after you got to know him a bit, that's when the Bobby came out. I mean, he was extremely comical. He'd make me laugh so hard. I mean, it would hurt.
He liked to have fun. He loved muscle cars. And as far as in the office, you heard him. He was a loud guy. He was one of those guys that when he got on the phone, you kind of put your earplugs in because he was pretty loud. Larger than life, he was.
I could depend on him when I was not in a great place. He would talk and he made sense.
Now Bob Eidman was dead, and nothing made sense. It was a little before 11 a.m. on June 8th when a mail carrier discovered Bob's lifeless body on the floor of his office.
Stop, please, stop. There's a man, I'm delivering the mail right now. He's lying on the floor with blood all over him.
Bob Eidman was shot 3 times.
There was no forced entry or anything. He was a business that was open for business, but it could have absolutely been a robbery.
Robert Eidman's specialty in the insurance company was dealing with high-risk drivers, individuals that could not get insurance through traditional places.
So he would accept cash against a lot of people who didn't take cash and advised them not to take cash.
This is a huge murder case in a very small town. And with more questions than answers, St. Charles PD needs help, and boy, do they get it. Enter the elite Major Case Squad.
20 to 30 detectives will respond, and the only thing they will work on for the next 5 days is that situation they've been called out on.
The investigation into Bob Eidman's murder is all hands on deck.
One of the things that we were not able to recover or locate was Robert Eidman's wallet.
Bob's wife Diane said he always carried his wallet in his back pocket. Police are desperate for leads, so they're going to try something unconventional. They cut the back pockets out of Eidman's pants to send for something they call touch DNA testing.
We just thought maybe a sample of skin cells could be found inside Bob's pocket.
It's a newer technology and it's a long shot. Police, meanwhile, canvassed the neighborhood where the crime occurred. They're knocking on doors, they're looking for every clue they can find.
During the area canvass, there's a Mexican grocery store. It's just a couple of doors down. I think it was on the end of this particular strip mall, and they were able to locate some surveillance video.
A white car passing by twice, but the video is grainy.
In that video footage, we saw a Ford Focus. We were not able to get a license plate due to the angle of the camera, and we were not able to see who was in the vehicle.
With lead after lead coming up empty and the clock ticking on that Major Case Squad, Diane Eidman. She remains a subject of, well, we'll call it curiosity. She was, after all, the person closest to Bob.
It is quite routine for police to look at the spouse of someone who's been murdered.
Tough questions need to be asked about the state of the Eidman's marriage.
I took that a step further. Has there been any time that you two argued? Has there been any time that you were unfaithful to him or he was unfaithful to you?
Diane insisted the marriage was fine. But when investigators seize Bob's computers to be analyzed, they make a shocking discovery. Bob's been visiting gay websites online. He's looking for massages and sexual relations.
Bob Eidman had been leading a secret life, and a search of phone records reveals so much more.
We found several calls that were coming in and coming out pretty much the same time each day. We discovered that Bob was having an affair.
A secret relationship with a man who lived more than 3 hours away. Police take a drive to interview him.
He was very forthcoming in the fact that the relationship between him and Bob was an intimate relationship, but very much affectionate and loving. They'd hoped to be together at some point.
It wasn't like a quick fling, kind of out the door kind of thing. I think that's what it was going to be. But we just became good friends and just kept talking from then on.
He says he never visited Bob in St. Charles, but said the two spoke every day and that he loved Bob. The two would stay in motels closer to his hometown when they got together. During the interview with investigators, he rolled up his right sleeve to reveal a tattoo that he said was for Bob.
While doing the search of his home, we located a box the size of a shoebox, and it had cards from Bob. It had receipts from when they'd go to dinner or go to a hotel. He was saving it.
With such tender and strong feelings for Bob, a handful of scenarios leaped to the mind of law enforcement. Could it have been a jilted lover who murdered Bob Eidman?
Feelings can run wild with someone. If I can't have you, nobody's going to have you. It gives people motive.
In theory, a jilted lover made potential sense to investigators, but the man had an alibi. On the date of the murder, he was at work, hours away from St. Charles.
He was on video, and there were numerous people who said, yes, he was here this day. This is the time he clocked in.
After passing a polygraph, Bob's secret lover is cleared. But it's something he tells investigators about Diane that raises red flags.
He called me. He goes, I got some bad news. I said, what? He said, she read one of my emails. He said that Friday night, he said it was a pretty bad night.
Investigators are now zeroing in on Diane. How angry was she when she discovered Bob's secret life? Angry enough to commit murder?
You never met her before?
No. I've seen her picture.
Would she be angry enough to go in and do that?
I hope not.
Days after Bob Eidman is murdered in his office, police discover the long-married insurance agent had a secret male lover, a man whom he met up with for motel room trysts and who he spoke to every day, a man who was devoted to Bob.
Did you guys love each other, or was it just a very close personal relationship?
I loved it, but I never said it to him.
The secret lover is alibied out for Bob's killing, but in a frank session with police, he says Bob told him that Diane had discovered their relationship, and he says that Bob had told him Diane's reaction had led to a full-blown argument between the two.
He said that, she said, who's, and, so this is, I think he said this is just, a fantasy deal or what have you. It's what Bob said. She asked him if we were sleeping together, and he said no. He said it was pretty rough that night, that Friday night.
It was up to Detective Stephanie Kaiser, the Diane Whisperer, to broach the delicate subject with Bob's widow while interviewing her at the Eidman's home. Kaiser said Diane told her that she'd learned of her husband's relationship with the man after discovering an email between the two, that Bob denied having an affair, but it was the tone of that email which had deeply hurt her feelings.
She describes it as he's telling him intimate things that he hasn't told me. She's telling me I felt hurt because he wasn't speaking to me that way. So they're married.
What do you think she meant when she said that? What kinds of things were they saying to each other?
I didn't ask the specifics, but I'm just talking to her about it. Did this happen? Could this be a motive?
In Detective Kaiser's account, Diane seemed to be struggling a little bit with the nature of her husband's relationship to the man, or what they did during their time together.
When I'm interviewing Diane, one of the things I asked a lot of different things, to the point where Diane was asking me questions like, are you telling me my husband's gay? I asked her, what did Bob tell you? What are your impressions? Her response back was, he told me no. He was going there to meet with him. They worked together, and he needed the stress relief.
Kaiser said Diane told her that when she learned of the relationship after discovering that email, she and Bob discussed it, but they never argued.
I'm telling Diane, Detective Stepp and Detective Grove are talking to him now. He's saying you guys had a loud, angry argument. She said, I don't know that it was loud and angry. Well, that's what he's saying. Diane, what say you? She said, I told him it was over. I told him he was going to end that friendship. But she said, I don't know if I was yelling and screaming. I go, well, that's what he's saying. I'm just asking.
But she laid her foot down. She gave him an
Yes.
ultimatum. You are not to see this guy anymore.
Yes.
As far as you know, did Bob adhere to that ultimatum?
No, he did not.
Diane Eidman finds herself sitting in a polygraph room at the St. Charles Police Department.
So Diane was pretty direct with me. I think she'd had a lot of questions asked of her and then just kind of tells me boldly, I did not do this. I didn't. Diane is just direct.
Diane Eidman voluntarily submitted to a polygraph, and the results came back being inconclusive.
She doesn't pass, but it's inconclusive. So it's just still kind of puts her in that iffy category, if you will.
Adding to investigators' frustration, a day after Diane takes that polygraph test, the clock expires. The major case squad is out of there. 37 officers, 15 different departments had spent more than 2,500 man-hours investigating, with no arrests. A frustrating end to a furious search for answers.
When it goes back to our police department at the time, it is frustrating knowing that you didn't solve this case and it just goes on to an active case file to be looked at as further investigative leads come in.
At that point, I'm assigned the investigation.
The task of solving the murder of Bob Eidman now falls to a junior detective in the department, Don Stepp.
When my sergeant came up and asked if I would like to be assigned this investigation, I was overwhelmed. It's one of those things, am I ready to do this? You don't want to say no, it's an opportunity. I wanted to see this investigation to the end.
Don had contacted me and said, I'm starting from scratch. I'm going to take this entire investigation. I'm going to do everything over again.
What did that feel like to hear?
Well, it was refreshing to, I just felt like there wasn't a lot there.
In 2007, I had only been a detective for 4 years. I was the young guy in the squad.
I had got promoted and I was a police chief at the time, and I didn't want him to feel like there was pressure on him. But he met with me a couple times, and the one time that really struck home is he said, hey, you're like family, and I am going to solve this.
What motivates me to keep going on this investigation is there's someone or someones who had killed Bob Eidman. Bob Eidman needs someone to stand in his corner.
Detective Stepp continues to immerse himself in the details of the case. It had been over a year since Bob Eidman was murdered, when Stepp is at the airport in St. Louis and he spots Diane.
I was off duty, and then I was picking up a family member at the airport, and Diane was walking my direction.
Despite the time that had passed, Diane had never fallen off of Stepp's radar. Diane Eidman knows that you're keeping a close eye on her, doesn't she?
Yes, sir, she does.
How would you characterize the look on her face when she saw you?
Shock. I believe at that point she thought she was going to be arrested.
But the surprise of a chance encounter pales in comparison to the shock investigators get when they receive a call from the crime lab. Remember that pocket police cut out of Bob Eidman's pants to send for DNA analysis?
It blew my mind when the results came back. It was the golden ticket. This is what we were looking for.
It is 2009, and Diane Eidman is spotted at the airport in St. Louis by Detective Don Stepp. How would you characterize the look on her face when she saw you?
Shock.
Stepp documents the incident, later learns that Diane took a trip to Las Vegas, but nothing comes of it.
And if you don't have a suspect right away, then there's things that take time. So things slowed down, but things did not stop.
Face it, there are few, if any, solid leads to pursue, including the identity of that mystery driver whose car was seen on the day of the murder.
They had this famous lead about this car that went around the block, and they had it on video, but there were 22 detectives for 5 days, and they didn't find it.
And there's another lingering piece of evidence still out there. that touch DNA taken from Eidman's back pocket. It was sent to the St. Louis Major Crimes Lab.
Anytime you submitted any kind of DNA information, DNA samples, it was going to be a year or more before you got an answer to it.
Nearly 2 agonizing years after Bob's murder, it's as if this case is frozen in time.
I felt that they were never going to solve the case. I mean, we'd pray every day. Just, we need peace. We need answers. We need to find out what happened.
It seemed like there were no answers.
No.
Then in March of 2009, that touch DNA from Bob's pocket is forwarded to Brian Crime. He's a forensic scientist with the St. Charles County Police Department.
We were contacted by investigators and asked if we could do the DNA on the case.
With almost every angle of the case having been explored and explored again, it all comes down to what Cry could uncover with the DNA analysis.
If we were going to swab the back pocket of a pair of pants, we would cut open the pocket, swab the edges, hoping to get possible DNA. Once I get a swab, I process it and cut the tip off and put it in an extraction tube, and then we load it onto a genetic analyzer that ultimately produces a DNA profile.
But given the cold case backlog, it takes several more months for the DNA to be processed. And when the results come back, investigators get a major break that heats up this cold case.
I developed an unknown male profile. It was a mixture of 2 people. One of those persons was the victim, Robert Eidman, and the other one was an unknown male.
I knew once we obtained the DNA profile, the identity of the individual in Bob Eidman's pocket, I knew that was the golden ticket. I knew that was when we were going to be able to close this case.
That unknown DNA could lead investigators to Bob's killer. So Cry enters the profile into CODIS. That's a law enforcement database. Hours later, there's a hit.
It hit that same day, and the next day, State gave me the name.
The DNA doesn't match Bob's wife or his secret lover or anyone else the police had been looking into. Instead, it comes back to someone who was never on the investigators' radar.
What did you learn that person's name was?
Paul White.
When the name's first discovered, Detective Stepp is otherwise engaged.
I was on a traffic detail directing traffic.
You just want to run up and down the street and tell people we've got our guy?
I was very shocked. My mind was not on directing traffic at that time.
What did you do then?
I started researching Paul White.
Turns out Paul White was no stranger to law enforcement, having served 15 years in prison for robbery.
When they got the DNA match, Don had contacted me and said, I'm going to solve this. And I truly believed him. I got to give him a lot of credit. You know, he did a lot of old-fashioned work.
This new lead poses even more questions for investigators. Could Diane have hired Paul White to kill Bob, or had White acted alone? When the DNA came in, that didn't seem to exclude her either. The idea being maybe she had hired somebody.
Yes, I mean, it was worked all the way through.
You now have Paul White's DNA on Robert Eidman's pocket at the time of his murder, right?
Yes, sir.
So I assume you want to talk to Paul White.
Yes, sir, I do.
And Paul White was not hard to find.
Paul White was incarcerated at the time when the DNA came back.
How you doing?
And so in September 2010, Detective Stepp pays a visit to Paul White at a maximum security prison in Fulton, Missouri, where he's serving time for forgery.
Do you have any idea why we're here? I wanted him to know right off the bat that we knew he was there. Does this guy look familiar? Never seen him before. I wanted the truth. I wanted to get a confession from Paul. I've got your DNA in his back pocket.
And will that touch DNA evidence be enough to get that confession.
White leaned back in his chair. He laughed.
It's impossible.
It's not.
It's impossible. It's no way in the world. It's impossible.
What are you thinking when he does that?
I'm thinking this is going to be a long interview.
I'm getting taped and stuff, and what the man.
There was a file, containing Paul White's name.
Among those files is an application for auto insurance. 2 names are listed, Sherry White and her husband, Paul White. Paul White's wife's file was on Bob's desk?
Yes, sir.
What was it doing?
I think when Mr. Eidman had seen the car pull up and saw Paul White exit the vehicle, he was grabbing Sherry's file to be ready so when he came in.
Investigators quickly clear Sherry White as a suspect in Bob Eidman's murder. With the trail of evidence now leading directly to Paul White, Detective Stepp decides it's time to meet face to face.
This is where the magic happens.
Doesn't look all that magical, does it?
No, it doesn't.
What happens to people when they come into a room like this?
We get to the bottom of facts. This is where people have an opportunity to tell us about what they've done and tell us their story.
Since Paul White is already serving a prison sentence for an unrelated forgery charge, he's literally a captive audience. Let's go back and talk about some of your strategy as you were going to talk to Paul White.
Paul, I believe, was in a little bit of shock after all these years. 2 detectives showing up from St. Charles City. He did not expect that to happen that day. Do you have any idea why we're here? Okay.
Are you thinking the long game at this point, or do you think he's going to start telling you stuff that he knows at that first interview?
I'm thinking to myself, the DNA itself is probably enough to get an arrest warrant, but I didn't want just an arrest warrant. I wanted the truth. Before I ask any questions, you must understand your rights. You don't have to make a statement or answer questions. You have the right to remain silent. Do you understand that? Could you put your initials there, Paul, for me? I think initially Paul White's attitude was very kicked back, relaxed. First of all, do you know a guy named Robert Eidman? Never heard of that guy? I even put a picture down in front of him and asked him, do you know this individual? Right. Does this guy look familiar? Never seen him before. Eventually he came back around and said, yeah, I thought that was his wife's insurance man. That picture I showed you, that's Robert Eidman. Okay, you say kind of looks familiar?
Yeah, that's the guy we got the insurance from.
And I explained that we were working a homicide investigation, and I explained that his DNA was located in his back pocket. Do you think there's any chance that your DNA is going to pop up inside that crime scene?
From a robbery.
From a robbery? None? You come to prison, they take your DNA. Your DNA pops up. You know where it pops up? Swabbing a back pocket of my victim. Your DNA shows up in this guy's back pocket.
That ain't no way in the world.
Why don't you think that?
You said that he got robbed. I never robbed the guy. I've been in there one time and to get insurance. So that's
exactly.
That's, ain't no way in the world.
You're telling me you've been in there one time.
Yeah.
And your DNA shows up in this guy's back pocket a month later?
That don't even make sense.
Exactly. With your story, it doesn't make sense.
Again and again during that first interrogation, you tell him, I've got your DNA. I mean, you must have told him, what, 10 or 15 times in the course of that conversation, right?
At least 10 or 15 times. He kept saying, there is no way, repeatedly. He did not believe it.
It's impossible. It's no way in the world. It's impossible.
Paul, it's not impossible.
Okay.
Well, I'm telling you.
I know it's impossible. It's no way in the world.
Then how did it get there?
I don't even feel like it was there. It's impossible for it to be there.
After White's adamant and repeated denials about that DNA evidence against him, investigators uncover another critical piece of evidence.
I ran every kind of data history check on him. The big point with Paul White was I found out that a neighboring law enforcement agency had issued a ticket to Paul White after our homicide in a white Ford Focus.
That's right, a white Ford Focus. And remember, that's the very same vehicle make caught on a surveillance camera the day Bob Eidman was murdered.
Paul White was a passenger in that vehicle, and the driver was identified via tickets as Cleo Hines.
Why was the car stopped in the first place?
Registration on the vehicle.
The registration on the vehicle was out of date?
That's correct.
Who was the driver of the car?
The driver of the vehicle was Cleo Hines.
What was significant about that?
We later learned that Cleo Hines was living with Paul White, and his girlfriend was best friends with Paul White's wife.
So they had a long-standing relationship?
Yes, sir.
What was the indication that you had that Cleo Hines might have been involved in the murder of Robert Eiden?
It was Cleo Hines' vehicle.
You were sure of that?
I was sure of that. I had a couple other officers contact Cleo Hines, and they arrested Cleo Hines and brought him to the St. Charles City Police Department.
Does Cleo Hines know a secret that could solve Bob Eidman's murder?
You know a man died, right? You know that? Somebody pulled that trigger.
After several years of lead after lead turning cold, the investigation into Bob Eidman's murder is now heating up as lead detective Don Stepp zeroes in on a new suspect, a man named Cleo Hines.
I was going to take the same approach with Cleo Hines as I did with Paul White. Are you the hardened criminal, or are you a guy that made a mistake?
Let's talk about the robbery. Dude, I know all about it.
I told him we had a positive idea of his vehicle. We had a positive idea of a Focus, a white four-door Focus.
You know your vehicle's on a video? Do you know that? You know that Mexican grocery store? There's a video camera inside. So I seen you pull in. Now, you didn't just pull around once, did you? No, like twice. You pulled around twice. Yeah. And that's on camera. Yeah. And then you pulled up.
He knew he owned a white four-door Focus. He knew he was involved in this. There was no way that he could fight that.
Unlike Paul White, Hines immediately starts talking, saying White approached him the day of the murder.
He got a gun in his hand. Okay. He wakes me up out of my sleep, into my head.
He told you he was going to do a robbery?
I basically already knew that because of the gun.
Okay.
And how he was acting. And he didn't have no money.
It took a very short time, and Cleo just started talking and talking and talking.
What kind of handgun do you think it was?
It looked kind of like a 9mm Glock.
A 9mm Glock, the same type of handgun investigators determined was used to murder Bob Eidman. But the question is, who pulled the trigger?
Somebody pulled that trigger. Yeah. Okay. It wasn't me, it was him. Okay.
And Cleo wanted to give his side of the story to defend himself against whatever Paul might say he did.
I told him 2 minutes to drop him. I'm outside, bro. He goes and about 5 minutes later he comes back out.
Did he have gloves on?
Paul. Yeah. He has a white gloves. White gloves. They were like cotton, like gloves.
Paul White had been wearing gloves, so Paul White absolutely wasn't going to say anything because he believed his DNA couldn't have been located because he was wearing gloves.
I don't even feel like it was there. It's impossible for it to be there.
So if a perpetrator was wearing a cotton glove when they go into the pocket and digging around, they could leave that DNA that's already on the exterior inside the pocket. Also, if the individual is sweating, it could actually soak through the glove and leave DNA behind that way.
What do you do with those gloves after the shooting? In the barbecue pit? Yeah.
Armed with Cleo Hines' confession, Stepp hits the road to Fulton Prison once more for another crack at Paul White.
And I'm going to tell you right up now, I got a full confession from Cleo Hines. Okay, he told me everything.
But even after Detective Stepp reveals Cleo Hines has accused Paul White of being the gunman, Paul White doesn't blink.
If you got Cleo saying that I did this and that, he's evidently lying to you. And I don't know why he would even say that I would put a gun to his head and force him to do something.
It's hard to do an interview to get a confession from somebody for a murder. It's really hard to get a confession from somebody for a murder inside prison.
White is arrested the next day, and he's charged with robbery and murder, and could be facing life in prison. Now, with the pressure turned up so high, will he finally change his story?
I've asked you 3 times. Drove 87 miles one way to ask you these questions.
Hypothetically speaking.
Hypothetically. Hypothetically.
If I say I was there, you know what I mean, and I saw everything that happened, you know what I mean, and it's like, that just makes me as guilty. You know, I still get a murder charge, but I didn't kill him. I didn't pull the trigger.
Finally, the dam breaks. Paul White starts talking.
I said, I think he got some cash in there, you know what I mean? So I said, well, you can go in and rob him, but I said, he probably know who I am, so we're gonna have to get some match. We already had those gloves, those cotton gloves that you were talking about, and then we went up to Walmart, and they had those little type ski masks.
Paul White describes a chilling scene of a panicked Bob Eidman trying to comply with his assailant's demands for money with that notoriously sticky desk drawer, you know, where Bob kept his money, instead of in a safe.
And then he started shaking it, like, to his drawer and couldn't get the drawer open. And I was like, man, just give me your wallet. So I reached in his pocket and grabbed the wallet. And Cleo was like, man, no, there's more money there.
There was a lot of finger pointing at each other, trying to point the blame to someone else.
Cleo Hines told police he never even got out of the car at Bob Eidman's office. But Paul White wants police to believe that it was always Hines who had fired the bullets that killed Bob Eidman.
He shot him once. He was like, man, where the rest of the money? Where the rest of the money? And he was like, man, there is no other money. There is no other money. And he shot him again. And I'm like, man, what the you doing? I said, man, is he dead? He was like, I don't know. Shot him again. So I'm like, man, we gotta get rid of this gun. You know what I'm saying? I took it and threw it off the bridge.
Paul White offers to help find the murder weapon, riding along in handcuffs in the back seat of a squad car.
We took Paul White out of St. Charles County Jail.
Going to find a weapon.
And had him point out the area where he got rid of the gun.
I would say, like, right in here.
We searched an extensive area for the gun, was never able to locate it.
Now we have 2 suspects and 2 confessions. And with both men pointing the finger at each other, prosecutors are gearing up to put both of them on trial.
I was sitting in the same room with the person that shot and killed my brother, and that was pretty hard to be calm.
Will Bob Eidman's family finally learn who murdered him? At the climax of a more than 3-year investigation that at one point involved 37 officers, cops finally learned the details of what was stolen the day of Bob Eidman's murder.
How much money was in the wallet?
It wasn't nothing but like $300.
So, how much you
like
get?
$150 apiece.
$150 apiece.
Paul White and Cleo both advised they went to the casino after the homicide and lost the $300 almost immediately.
He went to the casino because that's what he did a lot. He lost the money. Yeah, basically did nothing. Right.
It's hard to think about a man's life being taken for $300.
He didn't deserve what he got. He was running a business, trying to make a living, and somebody felt that what he had, they needed too. And so they took it from him. They could have taken his money and left. They didn't have to kill him.
As far as any connection between the 2 men accused of killing Bob Eidman and Bob's widow, Diane, Paul White revealed to investigators that he didn't even know who she was.
Do you know a woman named Diane?
No.
You don't know a woman named Diane Eidman?
No.
With Paul White and Cleo Hines now both charged with Bob Eidman's murder, it now falls to Detective Stepp to break the news to Diane Eidman, who had long been in his crosshairs.
I met Diane at her place of employment, and I said, Diane, this is over. We have the individuals, and we have the charges on them for killing your husband.
Was she angry at you?
I don't believe she was angry at me. There was a lot of stress that just came off Diane. You could almost see it leaving her body as she was shaking and crying. She was very happy that this was over.
Here, some 5 years after Bob Eidman's murder, Paul White and Cleo Hines are set to stand trial in this courthouse. 2 trials, 2 defendants, with 2 totally different accounts of the crime.
First up at trial, Paul White, who pleaded not guilty to first-degree murder and first-degree robbery.
Really didn't know what to think when I came into trial because I was sitting in the same room with the person that shot and killed my brother. And that was pretty hard.
The trial for Paul White lasted 3 days, which is actually very short for a murder trial in this county.
The trial was swift, and so were the deliberations. The jury needed just 2.5 hours before delivering a verdict. Paul White, guilty of murder and robbery in the first degree.
As for Cleo Hines, he decided not to put his fate in the hands of a jury. Before his trial, he entered what's known as an Alford plea.
An Alford plea is a plea in the state of Missouri where an individual will not say, "I did it," but there's enough evidence to say, "I did it."
With that plea, Hines is convicted of a lesser crime than White, second-degree murder and first-degree robbery. He received 2 life terms, but while Hines' sentence offers the possibility of parole, Paul White will never again see the light of day outside a prison.
Paul White was sentenced to life without parole in the Missouri Department of Corrections.
The investigation into Bob Eidman's murder had cast a shadow of suspicion on his widow, Diane. Now she stood in court and gave her own account of all she had lost. Were you there for Diane's victim impact statement?
Yes, we were. She said, "I'm going to be alone for the rest of my life. You took my best friend. You took my husband away from me."
She told the court this in part: "I looked over my shoulder for 5 years afraid, never knowing if the people who killed Bob were coming after me, or did the police really believe that I killed my husband."
I do feel like the system worked. The killers were caught. Science prevailed and overwhelmingly provided evidence that got them a conviction. Never again can he come to a Christmas dinner. Never again can we see him for a birthday party. Never again could he and my son talk and have a conversation or a relationship.
He just loved life. I mean, he was always happy and making jokes, making.
This is the Deathmobile, the last and final ride every one of us will take at the end of life's journey.
If you could write a script, isn't this perfect? You have a body transport person, a deputy coroner, and at least 1 visit to a funeral home that night.
How did you find out your father was missing?
His car was still there, but he wasn't in there.
His friends and family start searching, right?
Yes, everybody starts to look, trying to find his last known whereabouts.
Police ask for your help in finding the missing man. Who you see right here is Gregory Rice.
I think we just all assumed that he was going to be found in a ditch someplace.
He had a feeling that he was being followed.
Greg had actually said, if anything ever happens to me, it's not a suicide.
It's full of scandalous, secret sex. Erica Dontel began to receive anonymous text messages that said, "Your husband has gotten somebody pregnant."
Giving you every opportunity to get yourself out of the situation.
There's nothing for me to get. I don't know where he is.
What went through your mind?
I was like, this can't be true. I dropped the pedal and I started crying.
And you were scared?
Yeah, I was scared.
They were in the business of death.
So you learned how to do autopsies?
Correct, yeah. Took pride in getting all the answers.
We don't have people standing in line to get this job.
I felt like that was what I was put on this earth to do.
Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Every year, these shores welcome millions of tourists. They come for the sand, the sun, the surf. But it's not always fun and games. At night, a darker, more sinister side emerges.
We do have some problems in downtown Myrtle Beach after like 10 p.m. That's kind of like a joke about Murder Beach, Myrtle Beach.
The Murder Beach, or Dirty Myrtle. After dark, it's its own monster.
It's really become a dangerous place, and there are a lot of beachfront and alligator farms and ways to dispose of bodies that people are never going to be found.
When a dead body is found, Megan Jackson is likely to get a phone call. The 35-year-old mother of 4 and her boss, Chuck Benjamin, provide a service everyone will one day need, but nobody really wants.
My name is Chuck Benjamin. I pick up bodies for the local funeral homes and the coroner's office. It is about 3:40 in the morning. We are headed to one of my local funeral homes to pick up a body to take it to the airport in Charleston so it can fly out to their final destination.
How long have you been doing this?
Since 2011, whatever that is.
Okay.
12, 13 years.
14 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is the right schedule for today. Yep, 8:29. Leaves at 1 o'clock this afternoon, so this has to be there by 10:30, 11.
What do your grandkids call this?
The Deathmobile.
And you have it in your driveway, ready to go?
Oh yeah, all my drivers have one in their driveway.
Because you can get a call at any moment.
24/7, 365 days a year.
With those hours, not to mention the grim realities of moving the dead, Chuck says it's not easy to find transporters for his business.
We don't have people standing in line to get this job.
We've
I can
had
assure
people
you
work
this.
one day and leave.
Megan was a next-door neighbor to Joan and Chuck. She had moved from Ohio with Greg and her kids.
She wanted to try it when I needed somebody. So I said, well, I'll take you on a few calls. If you like it, fine. If not, it's no big deal.
She had an interest in science and blood and things like that.
Very first call we went on was somebody had been down for a week. It was decomposition on the 3rd floor. And I mean, she'd hold her own.
She could pick up a body, which is clearly dead weight, by herself and put it on a stretcher or in a car. And she's teeny.
And just like that, Megan becomes an Uber driver for the dead.
I looked up to my mom in a lot of ways. She did a lot of work.
How would you describe her job?
It's a pretty sad and can be an overwhelming type of job. But I think that as long as you're being respectful and caring about what you're doing, then I think it's actually a really good job to have.
Everyone loved Megan. Everybody that she worked with in the business. We worked for a variety of different funeral homes. At the time, we worked for the coroners.
Megan's job requires her to work hand in hand with the Horry County Deputy Coroner, a man named Chris Dontel.
Megan was a great worker. She endeared herself to all of us at the coroner's office.
Did you ever go with her to work?
I've done quite a few calls with her, and it would be something I would actually look into doing in my future.
You would think of doing the same thing.
Yeah. Never really bothered me as a kid because everybody passes at some point.
As Megan thrives at work, her relationship with Greg Rice, the father of her children, fizzles out. After 15 years together, the couple splits up, but they share custody of their kids.
Greg moved to the Arrowhead community where he lived in an apartment. Megan, who had inherited a good deal of money from her parents, purchased the home in River's Edge.
On October 3rd of 2020, Megan went over to Greg Rice's home with the children. He was going to get the children for that day. There was no answer at the door.
I received a phone call from Megan asking if I heard anything from Greg because he's not answering the door, he's not answering his phone.
Ryan and Greg worked together building patios and are best friends. Ryan tells Megan he last saw Greg when they both left work the night before.
I felt it was kind of fishy, and she ended up putting in a missing persons report.
Megan files the report in person at the police station.
Megan, right? M-E-A?
M-E-A-G-A-N.
G-A-N. What's your last name?
Jackson.
How long were y'all married for?
We weren't married.
Weren't married. How many kids you got together? Just curious.
4.
4, really?
I was with him for like 15 years.
How long y'all been separated?
Over a year.
Over a year.
Megan says she last spoke to Greg on Friday, the night before he went missing.
And you talked to Greg on the phone at about 9:58, you said?
Yes. And I told him that are we still good for taking the kids to your house in the morning? And he said yes. And I mean, everything was fine.
That was the last time you spoke to him?
Yes.
So you never physically saw him Friday?
No.
Megan was pretty much painting the picture that Greg could have possibly overdosed, was in a ditch somewhere.
What kind of drugs did he do?
Like Oxy, Broxy, I can't remember what he called
Did he get
them.
hurt or anything? Is that why he started taking them, or just
No,
he just started taking them?
He lived right beside the Intercoastal Waterway, and she was saying he may have wandered off and drowned or just wandered off and OD'd.
Police ask for your help in finding Gregory Rice.
It was a mystery that shook this Myrtle Beach community. One day, 46-year-old father Greg Rice is living his life, and the next day, he disappears, seemingly without a trace. So this is where he lived, right here.
Yes, his children would come visit him for scheduled visits and unscheduled visits. He wanted to see his kids often.
What did you find in the apartment?
So at the apartment, you know, his wallet was found, his front keys were found stuffed in a cushion on the front porch. His car was here, but not his phone.
Is that suspicious?
It is suspicious.
Why?
Most people would have left with their wallet. Most people would have left with their keys, or you know, why walk down the road? Why not take the car and that kind of stuff? So yeah, that is suspicious.
We set up arrangements to go to Greg's apartment and split up in teams and search his apartment and grounds around it for anything, and we didn't find anything.
Investigators canvassed the Arrowhead community trying to see when he had last been seen, but none of that was really fruitful.
The investigators talked to neighbors, and by all accounts, it appears that Greg Rice was a good father. He had a job, he was a hard worker. He seemed to be just an average guy.
Greg had some very good friends in the community who just found him funny and caring and really enjoyed spending time with him. The children all loved him unconditionally.
How would you describe your father?
He was always that person that would be there for you at the end of the day. If you had something you didn't want to say to anybody else, you would go to him.
Greg had the kids almost every single weekend. That's the one thing that mattered the most with him.
You did a lot of fun things with him.
Yeah, I did.
Like what?
We used to surf together a lot, and he used to actually take pictures for the surfing competitions I used to do.
Our favorite hobbies would be definitely surfing and golfing. We would golf 3 to 4 times a week. He was absolutely terrible, but a blast to play with. Yeah, he spent a lot of time in the woods.
How did you find out your father was missing?
My dad always came and picked up the kids, and that didn't happen this day.
Savannah says her parents' relationship took a bad turn after her mother got that job, working in body transport.
She just kind of acted different, was homeless, could be a lot more mean than before.
She was never home, would leave at all times of, day and night, and just leave the kids.
At some point, were your parents arguing more?
Yeah, they argued a lot, but it definitely did get worse once my mom got a job. They stopped just talking things out, and everything became an argument.
And then they wind up breaking up.
Yes.
After Megan and Greg Rice part ways, Megan purchases a home in the same neighborhood as Christopher Dontel.
She moved into our neighborhood, and then a few times she started kind of like popping up at different places. We would go to the same places to eat, kind of had the same routine.
So quickly, she went from your husband's coworker to a good friend, family friend.
Very quickly. Yep.
After a while, when Megan moved to Chris's neighborhood, he would just call her and say, I've got a coroner call, and I need you to, go to this address.
She would call me, hey, Chris has got a call, you mind if I go on it? Well, I didn't care, but as long as it gets done on the, within the time parameters that I have to do it.
Megan and Chris are constantly in need of each other because the coroner's office needs body transport. And that would involve meeting each other all hours of the night, all days of the week.
And then in 2020, Chris and Megan's workload explodes because of the COVID pandemic.
The alarming surge in cases of coronavirus. Hospitalizations are up in 21 states.
Funeral homes didn't want nothing to do with it. They didn't want to go on the calls, so they would call me because they didn't want nothing to do with COVID. We were doing 2,500 calls a year, and Megan volunteered, and especially she always did Chris's calls.
Megan and Chris are together for work constantly, and the new neighbors' families become COVID bubble buddies during the lockdown.
After Megan moved into my neighborhood, her kids and my kids virtually had an open door policy at each of our houses. Her kids would come and go from my house. We ate dinner with them several nights a week.
She was showing up with groceries when everything shut down for COVID and we were struggling financially.
We were expecting a little boy. Megan had a full load of brand new nursery items and baby boy items.
We never asked her to do it. She just came in and was going to be the savior.
And then you hear that Greg is missing.
Chris came home and he was like, Megan reported Greg missing.
It would all become more troublesome when police learned Greg feared for his life.
Are you suspicious about anybody?
He was always worried about driving and being followed.
Whenever someone goes missing in Horry County, we always write a story about it. We're a small enough community that if somebody's missing, it's absolutely a news story.
Police ask for your help in finding the missing man who you see right here, Gregory Rice.
Police kept on coming by and just questioning us. Have you seen anything out of the normal? I mean, that's when red flags were starting to raise, like something seriously happened to Greg.
When was the last time you had seen him?
The week prior, and that was the weekend that I promised I was going to come see him, and I didn't get to see him.
What were you going through?
I was in a pretty bad shape. I wasn't handling it very well, and it didn't help that my mom was still going out every night and getting drunk, coming home plastered.
Did she seem worried about your missing dad?
She seemed worried at first on the phone call and when she originally came home, but after that it was just kind of like nothing.
From all accounts, they had a somewhat tumultuous relationship. There was a lot of friction between Greg and Megan.
She never called him by his name. It was just, oh, he's this terrible guy. I'm going to drop the kids off. If I'm not back in an hour, send somebody to look for me.
I wasn't surprised at them breaking up because I know things she said about him, you know, how he would drink and do drugs and things like that. I think we just all assumed that he was going to be found in a ditch someplace from a drug overdose or drunken stupor.
Megan started making stories up about Greg being on drugs. Never once have I seen that out of Greg.
Law enforcement, they did look inside Greg Rice's apartment for evidence, the substance abuse issue. They didn't find evidence to support that.
No evidence of drug abuse, but investigators did find evidence to suggest Greg was increasingly nervous and suspicious in the days leading up to his disappearance.
Detective Susie called me over the phone, asked me if I would come in for an interview, and I said absolutely.
So I'm Detective Susie. I'm the one that called you on the phone.
So you're a friend of the...
Yeah, and I also work with him.
They had actually worked together that last day, and Greg had actually said to Ryan, if anything ever happens to me, it's not a suicide.
Greg mentioned to me that if something was to happen to him, he didn't off himself.
What do you think could have happened? What were your thoughts at first?
She had something to do with it.
What gave you those suspicions?
Just the way Greg talked.
He had a feeling that he was being followed by a silver unmarked car. Megan made it known that she hung out with cops, was real friendly with cops.
She always made the comments that she knew people.
Do you think she would be capable of doing something?
Not by herself.
Not by herself. That statement stood out to detectives.
Walk me through Friday.
I know that I went to Abuelo's on Friday.
What time did you go to Abuelo's?
Not a clue. It was nighttime. I was there with one of the coroners.
Initially, when investigators spoke to Megan, she had just gone to dinner with someone from the coroner's office. And then later, when questioned about that, she said it was Christopher Dontel.
We ate at Abuelo's.
Who'd you eat at Abuelo's with?
The coroner. Oh, Chris. Dontel.
So you wound up getting closer to Megan. Did you see her as someone you could confide in?
I did.
And you did?
I did.
Based on interviews and just other information from the investigation, I certainly think there was a belief that Megan Jackson and Christopher Dontel were romantically involved, but it hadn't been confirmed. So that was one thing that the investigators did want to either confirm or refute, that there was this affair going on.
It's now been 10 days after Greg Rice is last seen, and Megan and Chris are both being questioned by the Horry County PD.
One thing that we have to do is, like, we know who you are, we work with you, but we have to 100% clear you out as quote-unquote a suspect in his disappearance.
Okay.
Okay. So some of the questions I'm gonna ask are intrusive. They're uncomfortable questions.
How we got your name was Megan said that you guys had gone out to eat on Friday night. And then with Greg going missing sometime around that time frame, we're trying to gather what happened on Friday.
We went to, I believe, Abuelo's that night.
What'd you do immediately after you got done eating?
We both got in my car.
Okay.
That's the uncomfortable part, right?
Yep.
Mm.
So y'all were in your car?
Yeah.
Okay. Did y'all have sex in your car?
Possibly.
Okay.
I mean,
It's not possible.
You had adult relations.
Okay.
yes.
Eventually, the naked truth bubbles to the surface.
What's the relationship with you and Megan?
If I'm being honest, it's something I would get divorced over.
So you think his intentions are to leave his wife and are y'all
No.
planning on starting something?
Oh, hell no. I'm never moving a man back in my house ever again.
So this is just a fun.
I don't know what we are.
Your wife doesn't know.
She knows a little bit, but not the full extent of it.
I just don't want to wreck, he's got kids.
I know. Again, that's not mine.
What about you, Chris? Do you want me to answer it?
No, just, he'll be okay. He can wait.
Investigators ask both Megan and Chris for their cell phones, which they voluntarily hand over.
I get this back today, right?
Yes.
But it's someone else's phone that leads to a shocking revelation.
Erica Dontel began to receive anonymous text messages that said, in essence, hey, your husband has gotten somebody pregnant.
It must have been a hard pill to swallow that your husband had impregnated this family friend. It all turns into a twisted tale. What started out as a missing persons case uncovers a secret affair between a deputy coroner and his partner in body removal.
They were in the business of death, and I really do think that that was something that drew them together. It takes a certain special kind of personality, I would say, to deal with death on such a regular basis voluntarily.
So how did it go from you two being co-workers to something more than that?
She said, have you ever cheated on your wife? And I said, no. And she climbed over the console and got on top of me and started to kiss me.
How were you able to carry on the affair? Where would you go?
Because of our job, it was, I would get phone calls at all hours of the day and night, and it was easy to leave.
One night you realize that Chris and your mom might be more than just co-workers or friends.
Well, I just had friends over one day, and they were just being loud in the bedroom, and the next day I was like, wait, were you guys sleeping together? And she told me, yeah, I thought you knew. And I was just like, no, I didn't know, but thanks for telling me.
You had a great wife at home, Erica.
The most amazing wife.
Why did you continue the relationship with Megan?
She made our lives easy. She was going to be the answer to everything.
You did it for the money?
It sounds terrible to put it that way, but yes. I was not at any point physically attracted to her.
Really?
I was attracted to the lifestyle she was providing.
Did you suspect at all that she and your husband might be having an affair?
No. Because the way they acted, she treated him almost like brother and sister type.
Erica Dontel began to receive anonymous text messages.
And it just said, I think you should know that your husband is having an affair and got somebody pregnant. Oh, and I think you should know it's Megan Jackson.
It must have been a hard pill to swallow that your husband had impregnated this family friend.
Yeah. It was so far out of character for Chris. He told me it wasn't happening. He was like, who would say that? Like, what? Like, that's ridiculous. Like, somebody's messing with us.
Your wife received some texts from an anonymous account. What's going through your head? Do you think about coming clean to your wife?
I didn't. I downplayed it. I didn't even know that I believed Megan was actually pregnant. I didn't know what to believe at that point.
They end up calling Megan right then per Erica's request, and it's all on speaker. And Megan dismisses them and, basically, well, it must be Greg Rice.
This is what Greg does. Greg causes problems. This is what he does. He just tries to come in between any relationship that she tries to have.
So you sort of let it go?
For the time, yeah, she said she was going to take care of it and get him to leave us alone.
Chris Dontel is having an affair with Megan Jackson. Greg Rice may have been leaking information to Erica, Chris's wife.
Authorities believe that if Greg was sending those messages, Chris and Megan would have a reason to silence him. They know, thanks to their interviews, that the pair was together the night Greg disappeared.
Chris was in it the entire night.
Yeah.
So you have to drill down exactly where Chris and Megan were that night, right?
Yes.
When Greg disappears. Where did Megan and Chris start off that afternoon?
They both lived in the same sort of residential community. This is Megan Jackson leaving in her car at 6:16. There was another still showing Christopher Dontel leaving just about the same time.
In separate vehicles?
In separate vehicles. So this is the van that she was known to drive to transport bodies, and Christopher Dontel is always seen driving a County Explorer.
Minutes later, both vehicles are seen entering a nature preserve where they stay for several minutes. The two work vehicles then leave and head to Abuelo's restaurant.
Abuelo's is not that far from the preserve. They went there. We had surveillance video of them coming in. This is surveillance video from
That's them sitting at the counter. Huh?
Sitting at the bar. And one of the reasons why this photograph was important is because it helped us corroborate phone records, because you can see Megan Jackson on the phone there. And that's one way that we say, look, the phone records are correct.
Looking at the forensic results of their phones, they started to get GPS locations. Then they could go back and there's license plate readers.
This is the entrance to the community where Greg Rice lives. And right there on that pole is a silent watchman on duty 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. It's called a license plate reader, or LPR. And people drive past them all the time, all over Horry County. On the night Greg disappeared, Chris Dontel and Megan Jackson drove by this one, not once, but twice.
So in this photograph, we see this is the license plate that was assigned to Megan Jackson's transport van entering into Greg Rice's community. This was right around 10 o'clock, and then just about 6 minutes later, you see the same van with the same license plate leaving the community. And one of the things that this helped us with is that Megan Jackson swore up and down, Christopher Dontel swore up and down, that they had never been to that community.
Did you ever go to his apartment that Friday night?
No.
Had you ever been to Greg's apartment?
No, I never went there. I've never been to his apartment.
So this was clear evidence that they were hiding something.
On the night of October 2nd of 2020, Greg Rice's phone records indicate that he was at home most of that night until he got 2 calls from Megan Jackson, and that was just shortly before 10 o'clock. Shortly after that, it did show his phone leave the area of his apartment, which would have been going in the same direction as Megan's phone as well.
It's a short ride to the next stop of the night. And where Megan's body transport van ends up couldn't be more on brand.
If you could write a script, you have a body transport person, a deputy coroner, and at least one visit to a funeral home that night. It's the business of death. By October 23rd, the investigators had done a fabulous job of gathering different pieces of electronic evidence.
Investigators say Megan's body transport van is seen leaving Greg's community the night he disappears. They also say Greg's phone is with Megan. According to the evidence, where do they go next?
Their phone records place them at the Myrtle Beach Funeral Home.
Chris and Megan have access to that funeral home because of their jobs, right?
Yes, just based on his position as a deputy coroner and hers as a body transport person, they pretty much had free access to funeral homes.
What about surveillance video from the funeral home?
That would have been wonderful, but life is rarely that easy. It wasn't working.
The cameras at the funeral home weren't working.
They were not working.
Megan and Chris are racking up the frequent flyer miles in interrogation rooms. Now the regulars are back in the hot seat.
They knew that her van had driven into Greg's community, and that's certainly information that they used in their interviews.
Did you ever go to Greg's house?
No.
Then can you explain why the van you were driving that night hits on a license plate reader going into Arrowhead from Cleveland?
Well, it shouldn't have.
have pictures of it.
I mean, that's fine, but it shouldn't have.
But it did.
Okay, but I can't explain it. Because
You were driving the van.
Well, I can't explain it.
You and Megan were together the whole night. Megan's van drives into Arrowhead at 10 o'clock that night.
We could have been by Arrowhead.
Do you remember anywhere you would have been?
And I'll be totally honest with you, because I'm sure you know already, she's giving me a while I was driving the car.
Dontel used this sort of oral sex while driving as his reason for not being able to tell exactly where they went and when they went.
I tell you about pulling into Arrowhead. You say, oh, I don't remember that. I don't know about that.
All I can tell you is that I don't have anything to do with Greg being missing. So all I am guilty of getting.
You know who has the motive? It's Chris. He has a lot to lose. He's got the motive. And I think you're covering something up for him.
I'm not.
I mean, we're giving you every opportunity to get yourself out of the situation.
There's nothing for me to get.
There
I
is.
don't know where he is.
I feel like I'm being investigated for something that I didn't do.
Chris, you are being investigated. You are, absolutely, 1,000%.
I hope it's worth it, Megan. I really do.
I don't have anything to charge you with, but there's no doubt.
I didn't do anything.
Well, Chris, I'm going to tell you this. If someone asked me to put a bet on it, I would say that you did.
Without more direct evidence, police let Megan and Chris go. Meanwhile, the search for Greg continues, retracing Chris and Megan's steps.
Maybe that body has been cremated. Let's go check the gas and see if an amount of gas was used that would have represented the burning of a body. And there was nothing to see there. No extra gas had been used.
And then weeks go by with no sign of your dad. It must have been agonizing for you.
I just wanted him to come back. I just wanted him to be found and be okay so that I could go to his house. It was just a lot of begging and pleading for him to come back.
This is the Little Pee Dee River, miles of slow-moving water surrounded by natural wildlife. And that makes it a very popular recreational spot for swimming, canoeing, and catfishing. For Donna Sue Souls, it's the relaxation and family tradition of catfishing that has brought her here for decades. You said you call this your happy place.
Yes.
Why?
It's just peaceful. It takes all my worries away.
And then, 37 days after Greg Rice's disappearance, a discovery. So November 7th, 2020, how did that day start out?
Well, we come and set up. We set about 8 hooks that night. And then when we turn around and come back through, then that's when, I mean, you could smell the smell.
All right, tell me about the smell.
It was really bad. It was horrible.
On a closer look, what do you see?
Yeah, well, it looked like the tarp was just laid up there. And then once you got the paddle and we lifted it, that's when we seen the ratchet straps tied around the bottom parts of the legs. It was like around both and then around the head on the other side.
What went through your mind?
Well, I dropped the paddle. It scared me. And I started crying. I was like, this can't be true.
And you were scared?
Yeah, I was scared.
The Marion County Sheriff's Office gets a 911 call. Tell me about that.
We get a call for some people fishing found what they thought was a body. It was they found a tarp, and they knew something was in the tarp.
The tarp had black zip ties on either end and then also ratchet straps with cinder blocks securing it, obviously trying to keep the body submerged.
It sounded like a mafia hit.
It would seem that way. It would seem that way. They didn't take into account that when the decomposition starts, the gases fill up and it'll actually float.
Big mistake.
Big mistake.
This body was extremely decomposed. And there was always this thought, okay, here's a body, maybe this is Greg Rice.
Things had to be done, DNA and dental records, to positively ID this person, unfortunately, as Greg Rice. The medical examiner determined that there were positively 5 gunshot wounds on Greg Rice. Investigators start to look at the tarp that Greg's body had been wrapped in, and in fact discovered that the Lowe's Home Improvement here in Conway, South Carolina actually sold that particular name brand. And they go to that store and they start to inquire, has anybody purchased these items? And lo and behold, someone had.
But what really blows up this investigation is a piece of evidence that's literally full of hot air.
Why would you use a plastic glove, doll?
Sex and scandal and then murder. Let me ask you, have you seen anything like this?
This is a new one for me.
Yeah.
What am I under arrest for right now that I'm being murdered? Murder.
It just was like, oh my gosh.
You've transported hundreds of bodies in your life, and now here you are involved in a real-life murder.
Has Megan ever told you that she killed Greg?
I asked her how she knows he's dead. She said, why? Doesn't matter.
And I asked her, what do you mean? And she just wouldn't say anything.
They both claim to be not really knowing how Greg was killed.
This was a high-profile case with a lot of twists and turns.
They had a blow-up doll?
There was a blow-up Betty doll in the front passenger seat.
My mom could be an evil woman.
She had threatened to kill me. Felt like for the last 5 years that I've been looking in the barrel of Megan Jackson's gun.
He made this big cry, oh, I'm afraid of her.
Sounds like a horror movie. It's spooky.
Never seen anything like it in my life, ever.
Weeks go by with no sign of your dad.
I just wanted him to come back.
Did your mom seem worried about your missing dad?
Not really.
The former partner of Megan Jackson is now missing, and we've got the idea that there's this affair going on.
I mean, it's scandalous. Somebody from the coroner's office and somebody from a body transport having an affair.
Over a month later, Greg's body was found along the Little Petey River.
Once Greg's remains were recovered, there were very specific items found used to wrap his body. Ding, ding, ding.
How did detectives wind up at this store?
They wound up at this store because after the murder of Greg Rice, they found Greg Rice's body and he was wrapped in a tarp. And investigators later looked that tarp up and it happened to be a name brand that was sold here. And so they did a follow-up on that to see if there was a tarp sold anytime recently.
Police are able to get a receipt from Lowe's for a tarp, cinder block, zip ties, and a diet soda. And that's not all. As most of us know, in stores like these, there are security cameras everywhere.
And when you go back to October 3rd, the video surveillance showed the person buying those items, and that person was Christopher Dontel.
He's very relaxed. He's very well dressed in the video. He's wearing khaki pants and some nice shoes. He buys a Pepsi Zero. He's just nonchalantly pushing his cart with his murder dump kit through the line at Lowe's.
But now you know, without a shadow of a doubt, that he is involved. He bought all of these things that are used. There's more work to be done, but we were certainly on the right path.
As you drive out to the Little Petey River, you pass the Petey Exchange, just a little gas station convenience store. And you can actually see what we know is Christopher Dontel's vehicle driving past it one way and then returning the other way. And that coupled with LPR hits for Dontel's county vehicle really kind of cemented the fact that Christopher Dontel had driven Greg's body out there.
Convinced that the coroner did a lot more than just sign a death certificate, investigators rush over to the Dontel home.
Hey, Eric. How are you? My name's Greg. Is Chris home?
Yes.
Hey, Chris.
But he was just sleeping in bed, sound asleep, not a care in the world.
Your wife and children, it's probably better that you just come on and talk.
Over the past month, Chris has not provided detectives with much.
Chris, murder.
At what point can I speak with my lawyer?
At the same time, Megan Jackson is taken in.
Well, all I want is okay.
I don't have anything else to tell you other than what I told you.
Well, I can tell you that's not. Nobody here thinks you're a bad person. Nobody thinks something to happen to Greg.
You have no motive to kill Greg.
But Chris does.
So, the night of the second you guys were together all night long?
Everything that I remember, yes.
Okay, so I know you weren't with him on the 3rd between 2:30 and 3 because he called you. But I know where Chris was between 2:30 and 3 on that Saturday.
We were at a call.
No, you weren't.
The detectives then confront Megan with some very powerful.
What happened that night? Yes, you do, Megan.
At that point, they had enough probable cause and they were able to make those arrests.
Chris, stand up, turn around.
All right, Chris, murder Greg Rice, all right? I'll see you.
And after your father's body is found, the police come to your house.
They told us that my dad was found and my mom and Chris would be being charged.
That must have been so hard for you to lose your father and then to find out that your mother might be involved.
Yeah, it was a lot. Because I just never believed that my mom could do something like that.
We start with breaking news. 2 people have been charged with the murder of a missing man.
Police say Dontel and Megan Jackson are connected to Rice's death. Both are charged with murder.
And I was like, oh my gosh, what the heck? I had no idea. I was shocked.
When we got this information, it was beyond a shocker because Chris Dontel was a man who we would reach out to for homicide investigations, and now you have a deputy coroner who is arrested in a murder case.
And you had no idea from his behavior that he might be involved?
No.
Erica, I really think at that point she still did not want to believe that her husband was having an affair with Megan Jackson. She did not want to believe that he had anything to do with the murder.
With Chris and Megan now booked in jail, investigators continue to search their homes for any items that may be connected to Greg's death.
That is spooky.
The police say they saw some very concerning things.
The power button's to the top right. This is us.
When investigators with Horry County PD did a search warrant at Megan Jackson's home, she had multiple guns in the home. Strangely enough, all of them were accounted for, but they found an empty gun box that was a .22 long rifle pistol that is consistent with the murder weapon in this case.
As investigators look through the home for evidence, their search takes a drastic new turn.
She's got bottles in every crevice you can find.
She drank a lot.
It was just very clear that she was not a good mother.
It's like a doomsday room. You got a code lock.
There was a lock on the pantry door, so the children did not have free access to food.
And then investigators head up the stairs to Megan's 13-year-old daughter's bedroom.
What did the police find out about that?
Well, they found out that she had an alarm on her door.
An alarm?
If she was to open the door, it would beep. Eventually, it just got worse.
Their doors had locks that were turned to the outside so that they would not be able to open their doors from the inside.
The windows, they were nailed shut, and then spray foam insulation was sprayed around the windows.
It was like a prison.
Yeah. Yes. Pretty much.
She would essentially lock them in the room so that she could go, and she would go to work or do whatever she was going to do.
She was busy doing this job and obviously involved with Chris. I felt bad for Savannah that she always had to be in charge.
I was the parent of the house while living with my mom because she was never home. And on the weekends would be the times I would go to my dad's, but it would be also the only times I could actually have free time and hang out with my friends.
So you didn't go to your dad's?
No. It's one of the things that I regret most in my life. Because I should have, and I could have, but I didn't. And I really regret that.
The situation in Megan's home, besides murder, was so concerning that Megan's children were placed into emergency protective custody.
As a result of what investigators saw, she was charged with 4 counts of unlawful conduct toward a child.
Nothing at all to do with the murder or the arrest for the murder. It was totally separate.
Days after Greg's body is discovered, a bartender at this restaurant sees Chris and Megan's mugshots on the local news, and she remembers serving them rum drinks one night at the bar and overhearing a conversation Chris and Megan were having with a fellow patron.
So the conversation they were having?
They were normal conversation, like, what do you do? They explained, well, he explained that he was a coroner and she transports bodies, and he's like, that's gotta be a weird job. Small talk like that. Later on, it got into conversations about their families. She started going into great details about how much she hates her kids, how she never wanted them. She said, I think about killing them all the time.
The bartender says she overhears Megan making some disturbing comments about her family.
I had heard Megan say the same things, but I didn't believe Megan would actually do that. I chalked it up to the alcohol.
And a week after their arrests, Megan and Chris have their bond hearings. Prosecutors decide to try Megan first on the more serious murder charges.
Megan and Chris were ultimately let out on bond, but they were on house arrest.
One of the standard conditions is no contact with the co-defendants, no contact with the victims. In this case, for Megan Jackson, it would have been her children.
Chris loses his job with the coroner's office, and now armed with an ankle monitor, he returns back home where his wife is waiting.
At his bond hearing, they said, you know, we've got Mr. Dontel on footage at Lowe's buying, you know, the things that Greg was found in.
Now, are you a little more suspicious?
Yeah, so then I was like, well, that doesn't sound good.
Do you confront him then?
Oh, yeah.
Were you angry?
Oh, yeah.
How did he explain it?
Just that it was the perfect storm of just bad decisions and bad situations, and then, you know, it crossed the line for the affair.
And essentially their job, the circumstances of their job, made it easy to hide the affair.
So now Chris and Megan are back home, living just a few blocks away from each other, but they're barred from having any contact.
I was fielding calls weekly from people in the community. Both of them continuously broke those bonds.
Their ankle monitors were appearing at the same place at the same time.
They said they were getting together to exchange Christmas presents at one point.
He's out on bail, but he's still communicating with Megan.
Yeah. I found a cell phone. The only contact in it was a nickname, but I knew it was Megan. And I was like, after all this, you're still talking to her.
Personal drama aside, as investigators prepare to bring these cozy co-defendants to trial, they discover a silent witness.
Megan calls it Blow Up Betty. Let me ask you, have you seen anything like this?
Not with a coroner and body transport people. No, this is a new one for me.
So I get involved as an investigator here at the solicitor's office after their arrest. And we start looking at the evidence we have, clearing things up, and making a timeline a little more crispy.
Where are we driving into now?
We're in Lewis Ocean Bay Heritage Preserve. It's a recreational area. Hours before Greg Rice went missing, Megan and Chris drive into the preserve.
They had them on camera going in and out of that area.
What happened at the preserve?
Prior to anything happening with Greg, Megan had a interest in guns and shooting. She would shoot in the woods, and on this particular day, we went to the nature preserve. Megan wanted to go shoot.
What was she shooting at?
She would shoot at everything from tree stumps to pieces of paper that she would fold up, just random things.
So there's a still image on a license plate reader that you can see Megan leaving with this object in the front passenger seat of her vehicle. It was revealed that it was a blow-up doll, and the doll had a name, Blow Up Betty.
Betty? What was it used for?
At the moment, we don't know.
Your guess?
My guess is for target practice on this day.
So Blow Up Betty is no more.
I would surmise she probably isn't.
Was there a blow-up doll involved in all this?
Not that is relevant to the case. Megan was a unique individual, and
you don't know why?
No, that was just one of many eccentricities about her.
And investigators uncover more shocking details about Megan's personal life.
Before Greg Rice went missing, Erica Dontel began to receive anonymous text messages that said, hey, your husband has gotten somebody pregnant.
It turns out what was said in those mysterious text messages was actually true.
Megan, she goes, before anyone else tells you, I want to let you know that I'm pregnant.
Oh, Megan. You're just getting in deeper.
She told Christopher Dontel that she was pregnant, and then she had told people that she had a miscarriage. She did have a baby eventually.
There has never been a paternity test. Chris, of course, just accepted paternity.
The baby was eventually placed in the care of a family friend.
Our office is no stranger to really high-profile cases throughout the state. And this was a high-profile case with a lot of twists and turns.
This was an incredibly circumstantial evidence case against both of them. The problem was what they were missing and what they didn't know.
Because of the lack of physical evidence, the lack of a crime scene, one of the things that as prosecutors we always knew we needed was for one of these co-defendants to tell us what happened, to testify against the other one.
We signed what we call a proffer letter saying, if you cooperate, if you testify truthfully, there may be either a reduction in charges or perhaps a reduction in sentence.
Y'all sure you don't know anything? Yeah, sure.
With a lawyer present, Chris Dontel meets with investigators and vows to tell the truth about what happened.
So Chris says that on this night when they went to the Myrtle Beach funeral home after they'd had dinner, that Megan had left some reading glasses.
She said, I need to go see Greg. So she leaves. I stayed at Myrtle Beach funeral home. I did not leave.
Dontel tells us Megan Jackson left for a bit, came back.
She said, we have to go. I said, is Greg here? She said, no, but we have to go. She was shaking. I never saw Greg that night. We left.
And the next day it's like, you have to go get rid of the body.
I asked her how she knows he's dead. She said, why? Doesn't matter.
Has Megan ever told you that she killed Greg?
I've asked her so many times because I wanted answers myself, because I've had to answer to this, and my life's been ruined because of this.
He was not really knowing how Greg was killed or when he was killed.
Prosecutors don't believe Chris is telling the truth. And when he refuses to take a polygraph, they turn to Plan B, Megan Jackson. What does she have to say?
This is the part that I didn't tell the truth on.
Chris had a favorite song, a Keith Urban song.
Only You Can Love Me This Way.
Cause only you can love me in this way.
The night that Chris asked me to be his girlfriend, it was at the Keith Urban concert, and that song was playing.
Cause only you can love me this way.
You still hear that song? Still listen to it?
Yeah.
Chris Dontel has been in jail for violating the terms of his bond on numerous occasions for having contact with Megan Jackson.
I remember that.
But his wife, Erica, has continued to stick by his side.
So this is a photo from Charlie's preschool graduation, and that was our last family photo all together before his bond was revoked. So just how little they were. I mean, I feel like they're different people now. They're so big.
And the children, do they know that something's not right in the house?
Yeah, they do not know where he is or the situation.
You were trying to protect your kid.
And I never thought that he'd be gone as long as he has been gone.
Megan Jackson was in and out of jail as well for breaking bond conditions. And as pressure mounts, prosecutors offer Megan a chance to tell her side of the story through her own proffer.
Some people call it queen for a day. Like, this is your opportunity. You tell us everything, and we'll see if it's worthwhile.
We're here today because you, through your attorney, have requested to come talk to us today, okay? You are to provide us any and all information in a truthful manner.
Should I start from the beginning?
Megan Jackson says that Dontel had badgered her into luring Greg to the funeral home so that Dontel could confront Greg over spilling news of the affair.
This is the part that I didn't tell the truth on. I went to pick up Greg. He got out of the car, went into Myrtle Beach Funeral Home, and I gave him a couple minutes. As I got out of the car, Chris started coming out the door. And then I said, well, where's Greg? And he said he wouldn't talk to me. He went out the front.
She says that when she brings Greg back to the funeral home, she just sort of sends him in on his own and then never sees him again. That Dontel told her he had simply walked off in anger, and that was it.
When did you learn that Greg was dead?
After you showed me the body.
So Chris never told you?
Not until several weeks after
They both claim to be not really knowing how Greg was killed or when he was killed. They're both saying, I didn't have anything to do with it, but there's enough that maybe you should think the other person did it.
Did you shoot Greg Rice?
No.
Were you present when Greg Rice was killed?
No.
Part of your agreement that you have is that you're consenting to a polygraph?
What this case, I think, eventually just turned into is finger pointing, and, you know, she failed the polygraph.
We were trying to get one of the defendants to testify against the other. We met with Megan Jackson, and it never got to the point where we believed we could ethically put her on the stand. We are putting up someone who is going to lie. And we said, okay, well, we listed them both for trial.
A judge decided that the two trials had to be split.
Megan Jackson's attorneys got a continuance, so we said, fine, we'll go forward with Christopher Dontel.
We had a pretty rock-solid case for accessory after the fact to murder. He was on the tape at Lowe's buying the body dump kit. So we made the decision to go forward on both charges, the murder and the accessory after the fact to murder.
Chris did not go to trial until about 4 years after the crimes were committed.
We're going to go ahead and end this trial.
We had picked a jury. I was actually doing the opening statement, and I was halfway out of my chair when Christopher Dontel's attorney stood up.
And the defense attorney says, Judge, we've got a matter we need to approach.
Christopher Dontel's attorney said he'd like to plead guilty.
Recess.
We immediately hit pause for the trial. What in the world is going on? What's he trying to do here?
It's a major turn of events just 2 days into the murder trial for former Horry County Deputy Coroner Chris Dontel.
It was a really big deal. I mean, reporters were ready for a week of trial.
All right, hold on. We're going to just put a microphone on you.
And then all of a sudden, he just pleads guilty.
For him to do that was quite shocking, but at the same time, he did not plead guilty to murder.
He pled to accessory after the fact and conspiracy to commit murder.
Hello, Chris.
Hello.
Yeah, I'm John Quinones. Why is it so important for you to speak with me today?
The most important reason is so that the Rice family can get closure. The first day I met with my lawyer, when I told her that I would plead to whatever I'm guilty of if I can help bring closure to those kids. And I've never even hurt someone, let alone murdered someone.
As soon as he entered the plea, we sat down with the prosecutors and told them the story with the actual missing pieces that he was able to fill in for them.
After he took the plea, Chris says that he will testify against Megan Jackson in her trial.
I was afraid of her because I watched her kill the father of her kid.
I actually found out about Chris's plea, and that's when I called and I said that I wanted to testify against my mom. I asked her, what do you mean? And she just wouldn't say anything.
June 2025. All eyes are now on the Horry County Courthouse, where Megan Jackson's trial begins 5 years after the murder of the father of her children, Greg Rice.
This case was a big deal. There was a lot of media buzz.
A trial is currently underway for a woman charged in the 2020 murder of a 46-year-old man.
Mary Ellen Walter and Lee Waller are the prosecutors in the case. Mary Ellen is known to be a bulldog trial attorney.
I don't see how it's not relevant, quite frankly.
And Lee is also a very hardworking prosecutor.
It's the story of an affair, a pregnancy, and a murder. There's one person at the center of everything, and that person is Megan Jackson. She may look meek and mild, but she is a master manipulator. She was literally in the business of death.
Megan Jackson was represented by the Britton family, Tommy Britton, the father, and then Case and Preston Britton, his sons.
I'd like to see a murder weapon. Don't have it. Don't have any eyewitness testimony. I don't have any of that direct evidence. The stuff that a murder case should have.
The very first witness for the prosecution, Megan Jackson's own teenaged daughter, Savannah Rice.
We felt it important to open with Savannah because anytime you have a child testifying against their parent, that sends a strong message. And Savannah, I know you're nervous, I get it.
And how much time had passed since you saw your mom that day in the courtroom?
Almost 5 years.
What did she look like?
She just looked hollow, and just having her sit in front of me, it made me uneasy. She had come home drunk one night, and I was in the kitchen, and my sister she wasn't behaving, and I told my mom, and she started screaming, and my sister was upstairs, but then she looked at me, and she said, "I hope what happened to your dad happens to your sister." And I asked her, "What do you mean?" And she just wouldn't say anything.
What would drive a mom to say that about a daughter?
My mom could be an evil woman.
This is your mother.
And then the prosecution's star witness,
The truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Chris Dontel, takes the stand to tell the jury his version of what happened that night.
I drove her van. We drove toward Greg's apartment. I saw Greg on the road walking. I pulled up a few feet, stopped, and she opened the door, and in one motion, spun out of the seat, pulled a gun out, and shot him over and over. I didn't see it coming. Neither did he. We picked him up out of the road and put him onto the stretcher that was in the back of her van.
You've transported hundreds of bodies in your life, and now here you are involved in a real-life murder.
Correct.
And you drove to the funeral home as if this was just another corpse.
Yeah. My emotions were high, but we handled the body just like would any other body.
They had all the tools in the world to assist them in this. You know, they had a body transport van, they had a funeral home, they had a cooler.
I made a cremation container and I put it into the cooler and pushed the stretcher up next to it and started to push Greg in. I went to Lowe's sometime during the day.
Did you realize there were security cameras there?
I did.
Tracking you behind the tarp, the cinder block, ratchet straps?
Yeah, you gotta remember, this is not something that I've ever been involved with. I had no plan.
Chris tells the jury that the following night he heads back here to a place he knows very well, the Myrtle Beach Funeral Home, to dispose of Greg Rice's body.
I waited till it was dark. I unfolded the tarp that I had purchased. I put him in my Explorer. I started out toward the river. I went back to the middle of the bridge, popped the back gate of the Explorer. It took about 10 seconds, put him in the water.
Megan's lawyers try to discredit Chris Dontel as dishonest and an admitted liar.
You have lied to the police throughout this process.
Correct.
So what stopped you from going to one of your acquaintances and telling them what happened?
The fact that your client told me that if I did that, she would kill me, and I had watched her kill the father of her kids, so I believed her.
You were still having sex with Megan Jackson afterwards?
Correct, for a period, yes.
Okay.
You could have said what happened, and you didn't. That family suffered for more than 4 years.
She had threatened to kill me.
But after she was jailed, she couldn't kill you.
She kept getting out on bond. Felt like for the last 5 years that I've been looking in the barrel of Megan Jackson's gun.
He made this big cry, "Oh, I'm afraid of her."
Why did he continue to communicate with her? That's a bunch of baloney. That's crazy.
You know, there's the danger that the jury does not believe everything that Dontel says. So how can we show them that the investigation has corroborated everything he said, and that's where Lieutenant Wells came in.
My name is Benjamin Wells. I do digital forensics and digital extractions on mobile devices.
Erica learns in a really shocking way that her husband is having an affair through anonymous text messages.
Erica Dontel believed that these anonymous texts were coming from Greg Rice.
Through the analysis of her cell phone, it was able to be proved that Megan Jackson was the actual one sending these to Erica Dontel.
They were created on her phone. They were all sent by her.
That was the aha moment, like, wow, she really is trying to, frame Greg, and this is it.
Why would she tell you that she's pregnant by your husband?
I think she thought, oh, I'll tell you this, you'll leave him, and then she'd have him. And then that didn't work because I stayed.
When it's the defense's turn, they call no witnesses. Instead, Megan's lawyers point the finger directly at Chris Dontel in closing arguments.
The only person that actually has a motive to get rid of Greg Rice is Chris Dontel. And can you trust him?
Two fates will be sealed.
As to the charge of murder, we the jury...
And a young woman confronts the demons
We will never be able to live a normal life.
of her past.
Is there anything you would want to tell your mother?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. I understand the jury's reached a verdict. Is that correct?
Every time a jury deliberates, you wonder how long it's going to take. But I don't think they deliberated that long on this case, truly.
As to the charge of murder, we the jury, by unanimous consent, find this defendant guilty.
And then you hear the word guilty. Relief?
Yeah, also a little bit of heartbreak. It is my mom.
The woman charged in the 2020 murder of 46-year-old Gregory Rice will now spend the rest of her life in prison.
And as for Megan's outstanding charges of child neglect, those charges were dismissed.
She's doing life in prison, so why put the children through that if we're not going to gain anything?
A month later, it's now Chris Dontel's turn to be sentenced.
How are you feeling?
All right.
What do you think will happen?
Yeah, I just hope that he gets the time that he deserves. He hugged me as I cried and begged for my dad to come back. He told me it would be okay and that we would find my dad. He didn't tell me that we would find him dead.
His wife, hoping Chris will walk out free on time served.
Megan Jackson infiltrated all areas of our lives and became the literal antichrist to our family.
To simply keep saying I'm sorry just doesn't feel right. And I don't know that I can effectively articulate the depth of the combination of love, pain, regret, and compassion I feel for those kids and for everyone who loved Greg.
Christopher Dontel ended up being sentenced to 15 years for accessory after the fact and another 5 years for conspiracy, and for those to run consecutive.
Your reaction to what happened in court?
Obviously, I'm not happy about it. I was sentenced to the maximum.
If you could talk to Megan, what would you say to her?
I have nothing to say to her. There's a lot of victims in this case. Gregory Rice and his family. My family.
And you?
I believe so.
With that 20-year sentence, Chris's wife, Erica, needs to have a long delayed conversation with her two young children.
They thought that he was away for work, and so I told them that he was in fact in jail. That's where he had been, and then just kind of explained the story the best I could.
I spoke with Megan on the phone, and she told me that she did not shoot Greg Rice, the father of her children. She denies those child abuse allegations, saying that she loves her children very much. And in a letter to 2020, Megan writes, Chris Dontel is a liar. What he said on the stand is a lie.
Is there anything you would want to tell your mother? Or ask your mom?
just want her to tell me why she did what she did. And to tell her that I hate her, because...
That's a strong word, hate.
Yeah, I hate that woman. I hate her.
Greg and Megan's youngest children are now being raised by their older half-brother, Zach, Greg's son from a previous relationship, while Savannah lives on her own in Ohio. But recently, Savannah found herself back on the shores of Myrtle Beach, where she still has her fond memories of surfing with her dad and his best friend, Ryan.
This was a board that I had designed to surf with Greg, and I'd like to give it to Savannah so she can at least use it and enjoy it.
Your dad, what would you tell him?
That I love him and that I want him to know that, like, I'm okay. There was a point in time living in that house where I thought I was never gonna get out. No matter how hard and horrible your environment can be, you can always make it out, and you can turn your life around and be the person that you want to be.
I think he would be very proud of you.
The big question is, how the hell did he get there?
They were crazy in love at first, but it quickly became tumultuous. There were infidelities. They'd go back and forth. They'd fight. I think they liked the drama of it.
And the next thing coming out of his mouth is, when I get home, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to smash your face in. He said he was leaving and he wasn't coming back.
Were you ever angry enough to want to see him dead?
There were times I wanted him gone, but gone doesn't mean dead.
And Mel just said, well, I'm a single mom now, and now I've just got to get on with my life. I said, well, no, the next thing is we've got to figure out who did this to him. And after I got off the phone, I said, she did it.
They couldn't find any forensic evidence whatsoever to establish that this was a crime scene.
Do you still insist that you're innocent?
Absolutely. I still feel like, how could somebody think that I did that?
I think she did not actually commit the crime.
It turns out it isn't the end of this story.
My name is Megan Sachs. I'm a criminologist at Fairleigh Dickinson University. In simplest terms, criminology is the scientific study of what causes crime and how the criminal justice system responds to crime.
I've written about 25 true crime books over the years, and I think Melanie Maguire's is perhaps one of the most interesting ones and baffling.
This is Melanie Maguire, arrested today minutes after dropping off her children at daycare.
Melanie Maguire, a New Jersey nurse, was accused of killing her husband, cutting up his body and throwing it into the Chesapeake Bay.
In 2007, what was being called the suitcase murder trial was generating an enormous amount of media attention, not just in New Jersey, but all across the country.
3 bizarre discoveries, 3 separate suitcases, all containing human remains.
A woman who was on trial for her very life. She says the real truth behind the crime has never been revealed.
With no history of violence and no apparent motive for murder, could she really have done it?
She was this beautiful young nurse, and they were this seemingly normal middle-class couple, and the murder happened in such a grisly way.
The idea that this beautiful nurse could have actually killed her husband and then cut him up is just incredible.
Of course, there were the salacious aspects.
Mrs. Maguire is a registered nurse, and prosecutors say she had an affair with a doctor.
She didn't fit the profile, I guess, of a murderer. Over the years, students and colleagues of ours have come to me and said, you know, Melanie Maguire proclaims her innocence and would love to tell her story.
I started thinking, oh, maybe there is a little more to this case than what you just see on the surface. And then the idea of a podcast came up, and I was all in.
On direct appeal, we examined the murder conviction of Melanie McGuire following a highly publicized trial. Looking at the evidence that was presented and the evidence that may have seemed insignificant at the time, we form our own conclusion about Melanie's guilt.
We here at ABC have our own history with the Melanie McGuire case. Back in 2007, ABC's Cynthia McFadden had the first on-camera interview with the mother of two on trial for murdering her husband.
Who is the Melanie McGuire you hope the jury knows?
The one who tried to take care of everybody, who didn't make the smartest decisions, but admitted to those mistakes to the people she trusted most, but did not admit what she's accused of.
I have been incarcerated for 12 and a half, going on 13 years now.
Do you still insist that you're innocent?
Absolutely.
You're sitting here a wrongfully convicted person.
Correct. Absolutely.
And what have those years been like?
I tell people it's not as bad as you think in some ways, and it's so much worse than I could ever articulate in others. After all these years, I still feel hurt. I still feel bothered. I still feel like, how could somebody think that I did that?
This whole saga begins on May 5th, 2004, with an odd discovery in Virginia Beach.
Early morning, a couple of fishermen and their kids are out on a boat by the Chesapeake Bay.
Me and my friend Don Connors was going to go out fishing, and we both had days off, and D, or Don, we called him D, he said keep his kids out of school, we're going to take them fishing. So everybody was excited. We went right out through this bridge here, and if you keep on going, you'll run right into the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel.
The Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel is about 17.5 miles long. It really is quite astonishing. It connects the eastern shore of Virginia to Virginia Beach.
Has two tunnels for two shipping channels, and once you get on the other side, you go north, you're up into Maryland, Delaware, New Jersey. So we went out there and anchored off of Fisherman's Island, and we were just doing some fishing.
And suddenly, one notices that a suitcase has floated by.
We wheeled the boat around, pulled up alongside it. I immediately thought it probably blew off of a car, you know, and off the luggage rack or something. D and his son had reached over and were trying to pull it up in. It had some weight to it, so I stopped the boat, reached in and helped him pull that thing up in there. And laid it in the floor of the boat.
They found a dark green Kenneth Cole suitcase in pretty good condition that was apparently part of a luggage set of 3.
They put it on board, and the little boy with them is very, very excited. He thinks it's buried treasure, so he wants to open it.
The contents were covered with a thick trash bag, like a hefty bag or something. And I said, uh-oh. I was a little bit nervous then when I saw the black bags in there. So it's a turn to say something to D, and while I was talking to D, the young boy reached down and ripped open the plastic trash bags. There was no doubt of what it was. It's a set of human legs.
There's a pair of male legs from the knee down, look very fresh, and they recoil in horror.
I looked down there and said, oh my gracious. So I closed the bag back up, and I dialed 911.
I was out on patrol in the Chesapeake Bay when I received a radio call. I made arrangements with him to meet me, and he transferred a suitcase over to my boat.
I handed him the luggage, and he seemed surprised. He goes, what do you want me to do with that? And I said, open it up.
I was pretty shocked. I'd never seen a suitcase with body parts in it before. There really wasn't any smell. They actually looked kind of fresh.
The first suitcase being found was big news. It's not, a common
find by any means, especially in this area.
This is an alarming story. Everybody wanted to know who the man in the suitcase was.
We kind of figured there had to be other suitcases with other parts in it.
After the initial shock of them finding the suitcase, everyone was just waiting for what was going to wash up next. The Chesapeake Bay area, there's a lot of boaters, there are bird watchers, there's Fisherman's Island, a nature sanctuary. This is really kind of a tourist, a fun area.
People are going there to relax, they're going with their families. The last thing they would expect is to find a suitcase with a human body in it.
It was the start of the summer tourist season, which is huge for Virginia Beach, and getting that kind of negative publicity of bodies washing up in suitcases was something they did not need. 6 days later, the student was on Fisherman's Island in the middle of the Chesapeake Bay, which is a nature preserve. And she saw a dark green Kenneth Cole suitcase.
She was curious what could be contained inside, and she actually pulled a little bit of the black trash bag out of the suitcase. There was such a strong odor of decomposition that she immediately stopped and notified the refuge workers.
The police, they'd been expecting this because after the first Kenneth Cole bag with the legs, they suspected there was going to be more.
It was transported to the medical examiner's office in Norfolk, and that's where we actually viewed what the contents inside.
Inside this suitcase would be the torso and the head of a male. The torso is still attached with the arms and the head.
The head was wrapped in what looked like a medical blanket.
The face was somewhat identifiable, but it had been submerged for a while, so extremely bloated.
The medical examiner is able to determine that the victim's been shot multiple times. There are a couple of gunshot wounds in the torso area and one through the head.
There were 2 bullets that were recovered from the body, wad cutter bullets. And wad cutter bullets are not typically used by the average person, but they are used for target practice.
And it became a very big local story.
A student discovered a suitcase near Fisherman Island. Inside, a human head.
It's getting a lot of coverage.
It's the second suitcase in a week found near the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel, and the second one containing body parts.
And everybody was waiting for the rest of the body to turn up.
Well, the third suitcase was found on May 16, 2004 in the water by a fisherman.
He saw the suitcase floating in the water. This third suitcase that had been in the water the longest did have some growth on it from floating in the water for so long.
This suitcase contained the pelvis, so from the waist down to above the knees. Authorities realize they have to figure out who it is.
Anytime you find an unknown body, the first thing you're going to do is look into missing person cases to see if the profile matches anyone who's currently missing.
Because of the naval bases in the area, they're checking military records. They're checking everything they can possibly think of to figure out who this person is.
One of the policemen working on it came up with the idea of getting a sketch artist in.
I immediately took photographs to our sketch artist, and she was able to do a sketch for us, and we eventually released it to the media.
We're hoping maybe this will give us an edge and maybe identify him sooner.
Right now, he's just
John Doe.
May the 21st, Sue sees the picture on TV of a sketch that they had done to find out who this person was.
Sue had been getting out of the shower one morning. The television was on, and as she was getting out, toweling off, she looks at the TV.
This is a sketch of the body that washed ashore near the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel this month.
He belongs to somebody. I mean, he's got loved ones.
She thinks, oh my God, that looks like Bill.
Sue was pretty sure that it was Bill McGuire. This is John and Sue Rice, Bill McGuire's good friends. Bill and John had been friends since their early Navy days. Bill was friends with Sue as well. Melanie knew Sue. The couples had vacationed together.
Sue immediately calls her husband to take a look, and he's not so sure it's Bill. But Sue's convinced it is, in fact, and says, please call Crime Stoppers.
He was very good friends with Mr. McGuire. He told me that Mr. McGuire lived in Woodbridge, New Jersey. He was married to Melanie McGuire, and they had 2 small children.
He wanted to know more about the dynamics of Bill, why I thought it could be Bill. And the only way that I thought it could be Bill is that, yeah, he's missing too.
John Rice had spoke to Cindy Lagash, who is William McGuire's sister.
I got a call from Cindy. She said, John, is Billy there? And I said, no, he's not. What's going on? And she said, well, Bill and Melanie got in an argument and he left and he hadn't been heard from.
He said he was leaving and he wasn't coming back. My husband was full of bluster when it came to stuff like that. He would say things like that all the time. I didn't actually believe it was the last time I was ever going to see my husband.
William McGuire had, in fact, vanished. Mr. Rice and his wife, Mrs. Rice, eventually agreed to come down to the police department in Virginia Beach and view some photos.
Bill had a little red mark right here, and that's what I kept zoning in on when I saw the picture. That's exactly what I zoned in on. I mean, I've known Bill for 22 years. I kept seeing that, and I was pretty certain that it was Bill.
Once we had a name and approximate age, we ran him through our computer system.
He ran a check on Bill McGuire, and he found that McGuire had been arrested in Virginia for a reckless driving charge in the 1980s.
His fingerprints were on file already, which made it a lot easier, and they're very quickly able to confirm that the fingerprints matched.
The man in the suitcases was identified as 39-year-old William McGuire of Woodbridge, New Jersey.
So according to Melanie, she just thinks her husband is missing, but she is about to get the news that will change her life forever.
And I said, I'm sorry to tell you, ma'am, that William is deceased. And I just burst into tears.
Now they've solved the mystery of who the man in the suitcase is. The big question is, how the hell did he get there? The Melanie McGuire story is centered around New Jersey. They lived in the working class part of New Jersey where The Sopranos took place, which was perhaps the hottest show at the time.
Melanie is a Jersey girl, born and raised there. Her parents are Linda and Michael Caporero.
She's a great, great daughter, mother, friend, full of life, fun-loving, a good girl, never in trouble, never in trouble.
Always trying to help people.
She's working in the restaurants in Jersey. She's a waitress, and she met Bill McGuire. He was also a server.
Bill was known as the rude waiter because he would speed people up in a jocular way, but they loved it, and they would ask for the rude waiter.
What was he like?
Funny, clever. He had a big heart when he wanted to. He wanted all the right things.
He was very, very loyal. He was a tremendous friend. When I first met Bill, I didn't know what to make of him because he was really a practical joker and whatnot, and I thought, well, this guy could probably get on somebody's nerves with all of this. But he was so funny, he just kind of overcame whatever resistance you might have to him.
Melanie was a fertility nurse when I met her. She's just so caring, so nurturing.
She was working with women who were going through really tough times, trying to get pregnant. She was very compassionate, and her patients really loved her.
What made you a good nurse?
Type A personality. The way I looked at it, I was not going to be happy with anything less than the total comfort level of my patients.
In 1998, Bill called John and I and told us that he wanted to bring Melanie down to meet us. Melanie, she's a really nice person to be around. Physically, she's beautiful. She's very smart.
She had a lot of the same sense of humor that Bill had. When Bill was making jokes, Melanie would be right in there.
He liked to razz people. She would razz him right back. He really was crazy about her.
What was your relationship with Bill like in the beginning?
In the beginning, it was the challenge, it was the chase. It was, we had a bit of a tempestuous relationship even before we got married. We would break up, get back together.
Bill and Melanie dated for quite a while. They were crazy in love at first, but it quickly became tumultuous. There were infidelities, they'd go back and forth, they'd fight. I think they liked the drama of it.
I think she thought she could make a difference in his life. I think she thought that she could maybe change him, make him happy. She truly did love him.
You guys want some more champagne? Yeah. All right, let me go get a bottle. Because there's nothing in there, is there?
They got married in 1999. It was probably one of the most extravagant weddings we've ever been to.
Mr. and Mrs. William McGuire.
Melanie on her wedding day looked absolutely gorgeous, angelic, you know, just perfect.
Both Bill and Melanie seemed like they couldn't have been happier.
She was a little naughty.
He was marrying a girl that he absolutely loved in a way that maybe he hadn't loved anybody before.
Bill, did you put your hand up? This is the last time Bill's going to have the upper hand.
Bill McGuire got a $65,000 a year job with the New Jersey Institute of Technology.
Bill and Melanie settle into a rented townhouse in Woodbridge, New Jersey.
Woodbridge is a sprawling, densely populated township on the suburban end of New Jersey's industrial flatlands. If you're going down I-95, you're taking exit 11 to get off to Woodbridge.
We were both happy, new parents, and then things changed drastically.
He had a dual personality. He could be very likable, and then on the other hand, he'd be very calculating, manipulate you.
He had always had issues with gambling, and he would go through periods where he would go down to Atlantic City a lot.
There were times that he would just take off to AC and gamble, and you wouldn't hear from him, wouldn't know what was going on.
He found he could make some money gambling. There were good times with that, and there were bad times. And there were a couple of times I put my foot down, and I said, that's it, no more. So then he would get involved in the stock market. He wanted what he wanted, and he couldn't get it fast enough. And with that came frustration, and eventually that frustration became directed at me. There was one particular argument over the phone where he had gotten stopped for a traffic ticket. He had an absolutely atrocious driving record. So I started to argue back, and the next thing coming out of his mouth is, when I get home, I'm going to kill you, I'm going to smash your face in.
It's very difficult for me to think back on it because I actually drove off in the middle of the night, and I had left and I should have stayed gone.
Why did you stay?
I wasn't strong enough to leave.
Did you love him?
I did, and even though, now at this point, bear in mind, I'm having an affair.
What appealed to you about Brad Miller?
He was just very, very tender. I really tried to fight it, but I couldn't fight it.
Life for the McGuires is getting a little more complicated, and then one night, it all erupts.
Bill was probably the most streetwise person I've ever known, and I can tell you he never saw it coming.
Melanie is loving, caring, funny, considerate. We just clicked right away, to the point that I asked her to be in my wedding when I got married.
Love is always patient and kind. It is never jealous. Love is never boastful or conceited, and is not resentful. Love takes no pleasure in other people's sins, but delights in the truth.
In June 2001, the McGuires were already married for a few years. And even though there was some friction in the marriage, Melanie McGuire decided to have another child.
Little does her husband know just how ill-timed this pregnancy is. Not only is Melanie about to have their second child, she's also having an affair.
Dr. Bradley Miller was a partner in RMA Associates, and Melanie was working as one of his nurses.
He was so kind. I'd come back to my desk after a long meeting with a patient, and there'd be lunch sitting on my desk waiting for me. You know, there was always a little bit of flirtation, banter back and forth.
Melanie was about 38 weeks pregnant, and things changed between her and Dr. Miller.
I was about to go out on maternity leave, and I was sitting actually in his office at his desk. I just mentioned I have a pinched nerve in my neck, and he put his hands on my shoulders and started to rub my back. I really tried to fight it because this was not gonna be good. This was not gonna be good for anybody, but I couldn't fight it.
After Melanie came back from maternity leave, she and Dr. Miller started a full-blown affair, and it seemed like they were falling in love with each other, although they were both married with young children.
Shortly after my second son was born, that's when things began the final descent downhill, if you will.
Melanie and Bill moved to the Woodbridge apartment. This is a townhome. They don't own it, they're renting it.
He was constantly looking at homes. He wanted to end up buying a house before he turned 40.
He did want to move down here to Virginia Beach. We took pictures of houses in our neighborhood, but Melanie just would not hear of it.
They ended up putting a really sizable deposit down on a very nice home in New Jersey.
It was a very nice house. It had quite a bit of land. It was a $500,000 home.
It was very contradictory as she's becoming closer to Dr. Miller, but she's going along with Bill's idea of buying a house.
The marriage wasn't going well at all. So why were you buying this $500,000 house together then?
The idea for me was we had a chunk of money, cash, that we were putting down on this house. In the past, we'd come to points where we had been in similar situations, and ultimately something would happen and he would go and gamble the money away. I figured this at least was an investment.
On April 28th, they're due to close on the house at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and she's in constant touch with Dr. Miller, who's pleading with her not to buy the house. He wants to be with Melanie, and he sees a future life with her.
And Melanie told him that, not to worry about it, it's gonna be okay, I'll take care of it.
After they close on the house, they go back to their rented townhouse. Bill is so excited. He calls John Rice. John said that Bill had never been happier. The last person Melanie speaks to that night is Dr. Miller. She tells him, look, we've closed on the house. Bill's had some red wine. He's asleep on the couch, but when he wakes up, we're going to sort this out, and I'm going to tell him I want a divorce.
Melanie described the events that would happen later on as a big fight.
You and Bill had a horrible fight, yes?
Correct. We fell asleep on the couch, woke up early morning hours, and it was never a bad time for an argument. We're talking probably 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. And it starts on the house. I settled for that house. What the hell are you talking about? You settled for that house. It's a $500,000 house. That's not what I wanted.
Melanie says that Bill turned around and said, what I really wanted was a house in Virginia for cheaper, but you refused to let us do that, and so I have to settle. And she says this turns into a very heated argument.
From there, things became more physical.
How physical? In what way?
He shoved a dryer sheet in my mouth. He had a thing about dryer sheets.
The story that Melanie tells about a fight that seems to escalate over a dryer sheet is the same story she told us back when we first spoke with her.
We're still arguing, and there's the laundry basket, and there's a dryer sheet just hanging out of one of the baby's sleeves. He hated them. He thought it was lazy that I wouldn't stand there and put in the liquid fabric softener, and yeah. And it went out of control. This was the type of mother I was, that I would leave this sheet in there for my baby to possibly choke on. Before I know it, I'm up against the wall, and the dryer sheet is being shoved into my throat. And then he just smacked me.
In the face?
Yeah, open hand, because he probably would have broken my cheek if it had been a closed fist. And I looked down, and there's my 2-year-old.
I grabbed the baby and went to the bathroom right behind me and shut the door. I just wanted away from him at that point. He said he was leaving and he wasn't coming back, and I could tell my children why they didn't have a father.
Did he say this to you through the bathroom door?
Yeah, through the bathroom door the entire time. I imagine he was packing things and leaving. He was up and down the stairs a lot, but every trip back and forth berating me.
What's the last thing you remember saying to him?
Stop. Stop.
Melanie said he'd driven off and she presumed he was in Atlantic City.
He would have been back. He would have been back. I knew it.
But this isn't just a few days that Bill McGuire is gone. We're talking weeks.
What bothered me was that Melanie never reached out and said, hey, Bill's missing.
She never reported her husband missing, and it's almost 30 days.
The fact that we never heard anything from her was deeply suspicious to me.
Love is always ready to excuse, to trust, to hope, and to endure whatever comes. Love does not come to an end. This is the word of the Lord.
In the early morning hours of April 29th, 2004, Melanie McGuire said that she and her husband Bill had a violent fight and that he left and she never saw him again.
Melanie says the next day she got her kids up, she took them to daycare, and she started trying to figure out how she was going to move on with her life without Bill.
And during this, the next day, the day after that, you didn't hear anything from him?
No.
Did you try calling him directly?
No, because this is what used to happen when we fought. You know, I'd call, whether it was to tell him off or to try to apologize or what. We just end up getting back into it again. I'm done now. I'm done.
She retains a divorce attorney, and at this point, she does tell the divorce attorney that she has not seen her husband in a few days. And according to Melanie, the attorney advised her not to file a missing persons report.
My heart broke for her. She didn't deserve, nobody deserved that. But I told her that, you know, she needed to think about herself right now. She needs to protect herself.
I called a business associate of mine who was an attorney. She said, you need to get a restraining order.
State your full name.
Melanie Lynn McGuire.
She had to go in front of a judge and give sworn statement about the incident that happened.
Tell me what happened that brought you to court today for temporary restraining order.
My husband and I closed on our first house on Wednesday.
That should be a positive thing, shouldn't it?
Yeah, it should. He's been behaving really erratically.
Ms. McGuire, you're safe here. Don't worry.
Melanie explained to the judge how Bill had been violent with her.
Did he hit you, ma'am?
No, not until, well, I don't mean to sound like I had absolutely no part in this. I said some not nice things and slapped me.
As part of the questions, Melanie was asked by the judge if she owned any firearms.
Do you know if there's any weapons?
Not to my knowledge.
This is a sketch of the body that washed ashore near the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel this month.
We're hoping maybe this will give us an edge and maybe identify him sooner.
About a month goes by between the time that Bill disappears and when Sue Rice identifies Bill McGuire after seeing the sketch on local TV. The next thing police have to do is notify Melanie McGuire of the death of her husband.
Melanie was asked to come down to the police station.
The officer came out and he says, is your husband William McGuire? And I said, yes. And he said, I'm sorry to tell you, ma'am, that William is deceased. And I just burst into tears.
But there's one thing she never asked. How was Bill McGuire murdered?
They did not tell her how and the condition in which he was found.
That would be one of the first questions that I would ask.
The next step was that the Virginia police wanted to speak with Melanie. Melanie agrees, but she brings her divorce attorney with her and another criminal attorney in that practice.
Conducting an interview with the victim's wife with 2 attorneys present is highly unusual. First time I have ever had that happen to me. She was nervous, she was visibly shaking, she made expressions like she was crying, but she never had a tear in her eye. I asked her if she had any luggage, and she informed us that they didn't have any matching luggage.
The next day, Melanie told detectives she suddenly remembered that the McGuires did own a matching set of designer luggage.
I showed her a picture of one of the pieces of luggage that we recovered in the bay, and she identified that as belonging to them.
They asked what kind of person Bill was, and she said he was the kind of person that had a knack for pissing people off.
She asked us, where did we find her husband's vehicle at? I told her at that point, we hadn't found her husband's vehicle. And she said that probably a good place to look would be Atlantic City, New Jersey. She also informed us that her husband had a gambling problem.
Did he get involved with the wrong people? That's what I would have to believe, that he had gotten himself into something, and Bill always thought he could handle everything.
He was always into some kind of deal, so I think maybe this deal was his last deal.
After the interview was done that evening, we also conducted a search at their old apartment building. The apartment was empty. She had already moved out.
They asked him about Bill's possessions and his clothes.
We discovered that Miss McGuire had already given all of her husband's belongings away.
Virginia Beach detectives find out that Melanie McGuire had given most of Bill's belongings away to a friend's cousin, and they wanted to track that man down. Eventually they did and found out that most of Bill's clothing was still in black trash bags, much like the bags that contained Bill McGuire's body parts.
The garbage bag, by sight, looked identical.
Things are starting to make sense with the detectives. There's the black trash bags, and there was also the hospital blanket that the head was wrapped into. And they're thinking, well, Melanie McGuire is a nurse. That's kind of an odd coincidence.
At Melanie's suggestion, detectives start to search Atlantic City for Bill's car. And lo and behold, that's exactly where they find it.
The Atlantic City forensic unit processed Mr. McGuire's vehicle. They took photos, they fingerprinted, they vacuum cleaned the floorboards.
The body was released to Melanie on a Tuesday. Immediately she had him cremated. And the funeral lasted all of 10-15 minutes at the most. She called the following evening after the funeral, and at that point I just kind of blasted her. I just told her, I said, Melanie, Bill deserves so much more. And Mel just said, well, I'm a single mom now, and now I've just got to get on with my life. I said, well, no, the next thing is we've got to figure out who did this to him. And after I got off the phone, I remember hanging it up, and I said, John, she did it. She did it.
Everything pointed to Melanie McGuire.
Through wiretapping her phones, the police discovered the relationship that she was having with Dr. Miller.
It's a eureka moment because it provides motive.
I've told them everything that I know, but they're, they just don't.
They want you to break.
What's the last thing you remember saying to him?
Stop. Stop.
People like to believe that someone was capable of committing this type of murder.
Accused of cutting up his body and throwing it into the Chesapeake Bay.
That the person who did that would look like a monster. But sometimes killers look just like Melanie McGuire.
Is there anything else you're not telling me? Like what? Like I killed my husband?
Did you?
scorched earth investigation was conducted, and the lack of evidence is resounding.
The evidence in this case points to a well-organized, meticulously planned execution of a murder.
Computer searches that said how to murder someone, how to poison someone, basically multiple searches about how you kill someone.
I don't get to be an evil genius and an idiot at the same time.
I believe that Melanie was wrongfully convicted.
Who do you think killed your husband?
Melanie McGuire, once a married mother to 2 little boys and a fertility nurse, is today a 47-year-old inmate at the Edna Mann Correctional Facility in Clinton, New Jersey.
In here, guilt and innocence is irrelevant in day-to-day life. I have 6 numbers and a letter after my name, the same as the woman on one side of me and the same as the woman on the other side of me.
After Virginia Beach exhausted their investigation, they realized all signs pointed north to New Jersey.
My name is Patty Prezioso. I was the lead investigator in the Melanie McGuire investigation and prosecution.
Patty Prezioso was a very driven and highly successful Assistant Attorney General in New Jersey.
You let the evidence guide you, and you follow it until it's clear what happened.
She was extremely competent, and it was obvious.
The task force had local police, state police, the Attorney General's office. They decided to treat this case with top priority.
It was clear that he had been shot, and trying to find out if any of the people close to Bill owned a gun was a top priority.
The detectives don't find any record of Melanie buying a gun in New Jersey, so they decide to check Pennsylvania.
They knew that Pennsylvania was close, and a lot of people will go to Pennsylvania for firearms because the gun laws are more lax. There's less of a waiting period, and so you can go in and essentially walk out the same day with a firearm.
It turned out that when the record check was done with Pennsylvania, a record came back that Melanie McGuire had purchased a gun.
I remember plain as day when she came in, because not many women come into the shop. She filled the forms out, and then when she wrote down her occupation, that she was a nurse, that stuck in my mind, because I guess that was the first time I ever sold a gun, to a nurse.
Melanie bought a Taurus 38 Special, and she bought wad cutter bullets.
And that gun was purchased just 2 days before Melanie McGuire said her husband went missing.
And remember, early on, Virginia detectives talked to Melanie, and she never mentioned anything to them about buying a gun.
I had informed my attorneys of the purchase of the gun, and they said, well, if they ask, don't lie, but don't offer any information. And they never asked about a gun.
Melanie bought the gun because Bill wanted her to buy the gun. She could get it, he wanted it. What he wanted, he got.
Because Bill McGuire had a felony conviction stemming from his horrendous driving record, he was barred from purchasing firearms.
You say your husband asked you to purchase the gun, but you purchased a gun just 2 days before your husband went missing.
Of course, it's a coincidence. However, he was on me for a while about that, about trying to get that. And if something was happening, if he was in some sort of trouble, that may very well have been the reason why he was so intent on getting it.
Once the police really honed in on Melanie, they began wiretapping her phones.
Hello. Hi.
The surveillance was so intense that over a 40-day period, they recorded 500 hours of her phone calls.
Every time you get your head back above water, and that hand reaches out from beyond the grave.
A lot of those calls were very cryptic.
Hey. How you doing? I spoke to, what's his name, about shipping?
Alex.
I didn't want to say name. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yep.
She used the phrase a lot, being cut off at the knees.
At least meet with a lawyer ahead of time who might cut it off at the knees.
Doesn't that look suspicious?
It doesn't matter what it looks like.
She was a little salty. That was her personality, though. She was a Jersey girl.
A lot of them were to her boyfriend, Dr. Bradley Miller.
It was very clear right from the beginning that the relationship with Dr. Miller was different. There was a change in her voice. It was a softer tone.
It's a eureka moment when they realize that she's having an affair because it provides motive. Dr. Miller also becomes a suspect. So one night when Dr. Miller was leaving work, he was going to his car. The detectives came out to confront him.
Dr. Miller was adamant that he had nothing to do with any crime and he didn't know anything about this. And so I think the police said, well, prove it. You know, if you're willing to wear a wire, we'll believe you.
It is now 2:30 p.m., May 31st, 2005. Brad Miller making an outgoing call to Melanie McGuire. Hello?
What's up?
I've told them everything that I know. But they're, you know, they just don't.
They want you to break.
I mean, if you want us to stick together, I gotta know everything now. Before this goes any further.
What do you mean you have to know everything now?
I mean, there's no other secrets between us, right?
That I can think of.
You swear you had nothing to do with us?
Yeah.
And your children's lives. Because I'm standing by you.
Yeah.
In those intercepted phone calls, another friend she was speaking to was Jim Finn.
Melanie met Jim Finn in nursing school, and Jim admittedly had a crush on Melanie.
But once she left nursing school, she never talked to him again. You know, that was it until February 2004, and she suddenly got in touch with him again.
When she needed something, he was someone that, you know, she could manipulate, and she knew he was a lover of guns.
The police also approach Jim Finn because they find that before Bill disappeared, she's been talking to him about the firearms.
She said to him, hey, I need to talk to you. There's some weird stuff going on here, and Bill is acting weird.
Jim, who really still holds the torch for Melanie, and Melanie knows that, says, well, maybe you should get a gun to defend yourself.
Investigators pick up Jim Finn, who also allows them to record his conversations with Melanie. And once they hear what's on those calls, they're satisfied Finn knew nothing about the murder.
The reason I asked you about buying a gun is because my husband wanted one.
He wanted one?
Yeah. Not only did he want one, I bought one for him.
Why didn't you tell me?
At the time the detective spoke to Jim Finn, he had no idea that Melanie McGuire had purchased a gun. He was surprised.
Is there anything else you're not telling me?
Like what? Like I killed my husband.
Did you?
No. But thanks for asking.
Melanie never wavers on whether or not she was involved. It is always a hard no.
I want you to tell me the truth.
I'm telling you the truth. I did not do it.
She was under a microscope. Everything she did was being watched. Everything she said was being listened to.
Melanie does something that most people would find a little suspicious.
Investigators start looking at her E-ZPass records. They notice trips to Atlantic City.
She knew that Bill McGuire's car was in Atlantic City because she put it there. That requires 2 drivers. So that means someone helped her.
What investigators find in Atlantic City has them wondering, did Melanie have an accomplice? And if so, who was it? The next set of clues in the mystery of who killed Bill McGuire leads investigators to a 170-mile stretch of toll road, the Garden State Parkway. With Melanie now the prime suspect, detectives start pulling her records. They try to track her movements in the days around her husband's disappearance. And one of those is her E-ZPass statement.
So when investigators start looking at her E-ZPass records, they notice that there were charges for 2 trips to Atlantic City.
On April 30th, 2004, just 2 days after the fight Melanie said that she and Bill had, Melanie does something that is very odd and most people would find a little suspicious.
I'm starting to become more actively angry at him. And I'm thinking, that son of a bitch, I know where he is.
According to Melanie, she decides that he's probably in Atlantic City gambling, so she's going to drive down there and she's going to look for his car.
Absolutely not rational, but get in the car and go down there. And I'm driving down, and I take the first pass on this highway, and I see a dark sedan. There's no way. There's no way. And lo and behold, there it is.
Once Melanie spots Bill's car from the highway, she decides she's going to move his car. Melanie says in the past, when they're angry at each other, it's a way of messing with each other, I guess you could say.
Pull off onto a little side street, and I parked my car, and it was like Mission Impossible. Scooted up to the car, got in, started it, and drove away.
And where'd you put it?
What I believe to be the Flamingo Hotel.
What Melanie said was, I was going to move his car to the seediest part of town, the most annoying for him to find.
That just didn't make any sense, that he was physically abusive to her, but then she goes to mess with a car with a guy that she claims she doesn't want to be around.
It sounds beyond ridiculous sitting here saying it, and I acknowledge that, and I can't, you know, it's the truth.
It's an incredible story, meaning it's just not credible.
We believe she was planting his car in Atlantic City. She was trying to create an illusion that Bill McGuire was still alive. That requires two drivers. So certainly that means someone helped her. Someone had her Pathfinder, and she was driving Bill McGuire's car. They put the car at the Flamingo Hotel, and then she went home with the person driving her car.
And investigators thought they'd struck pay dirt when they discovered that hotel's parking lot had surveillance cameras.
In truth, of course, the footage did not capture who the driver was.
The surveillance video from the Flamingo Hotel actually showed the victim's vehicle being pulled into a parking space. Because of the darkness and the glare and the background lights, you could not actually see the person that was occupying the vehicle.
There was another inexplicable road trip, this time to Delaware, 5 days after her husband went missing.
She had shared with Dr. Miller that in the early morning hours of May 4th, she was actually furniture shopping.
Investigators think that this Delaware furniture trip is really just a ruse.
That same road would have taken her to the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel.
Normally, someone would take the New Jersey Turnpike to go over the Delaware Memorial Bridge, picking up Route 13, which runs south to the Chesapeake Bay Bridge and Tunnel.
Patty Precioso says that Melanie actually left the night before from New Jersey, drove Bill's remains to Virginia.
We believe that that was when she took the suitcases with Bill's remains and got rid of them in the Chesapeake Bay. And the first suitcase turned up the very next day.
But of course, Melanie thinks this theory is preposterous.
Virginia Beach is another 450 miles from Delaware. So, I mean, you're talking about hours, and there just isn't enough time.
And why was she driving all the way down to Chesapeake with the body parts in the car, thinking, I'm not going to get stopped, I'm not going to break down? What a chance that is. You know, I mean, you can't stop on a bridge and open a window and throw 3 suitcases out.
Maybe if it was one of these pieces of circumstantial evidence for which you might have a reasonable explanation for 1 or 2, but we're talking a large amount. You can't have reasonable explanations for all of them.
It's a mountain, and it's a lot of coincidences, and that's absolutely.
But coincidences don't always make for the best evidence. And detectives were still searching for any physical evidence that would link Melanie McGuire to her husband Bill's murder.
Where is the proof? Where is the forensic evidence?
The task force is convinced that Bill was murdered and dismembered at their townhouse in Woodbridge. So they concentrate on that.
They went back 4 to 5 times to search for any evidence.
They did everything that you would typically think of, right? They brought in the luminol, pulled down parts of the walls, they pulled out the piping, pulling floorboards up. They really turned this place upside down a number of times.
They were trying to find bullets, traces of blood, and nothing ever came up.
Couldn't find any forensic evidence whatsoever to establish that this was a crime scene.
I don't know how you would dismember a body and effectively clean that up.
Despite that glaring lack of physical evidence, investigators still believe the circumstantial evidence is enough, and they arrest Melanie McGuire.
So surreal. Day like any other, getting the kids off to daycare.
We surveilled her to the school, waited for her to drop her children off.
Walking out of the building, I'm not even off the curb. Melanie McGuire, can you come with us, please? I knew.
2 years and 10 months after the first suitcase washed up, the trial against Melanie McGuire commences in Middlesex County, and it was a sensation.
The evidence will show that while Bill was engrossed in purchasing the house, the defendant was very busy planning his death.
There was no proof that Melanie McGuire murdered her husband.
The prosecutor said either Melanie McGuire is guilty or she's the unluckiest woman in the world.
On Monday, March 5th, 2007, 2 years and 10 months after the first suitcase had washed up in the Chesapeake Bay, Melanie McGuire went on trial for her husband's first-degree murder.
This was a case that had garnered a lot of media attention in New Jersey. It had all the elements that it was going to be a salacious trial.
The judge let us know that the trial was going to be televised.
Let's bring a couple of experts into the conversation to help us sort through yesterday's evidence.
It made people act differently.
I think Melanie loved the idea that she was the center of attention.
She seemed very relaxed, much more relaxed than I would have been.
It was a double-edged sword because if she sat there, more stoic, she looked nasty or she looked mean. And then when she was being more upbeat and talking to people, oh, well, she's joking around at her own trial. There was nothing she could do that wasn't going to be criticized.
By the time Melanie McGuire gets to trial, she's hired Stephen Turano and Joe Tacopina to represent her. Joe Tacopina was a high-profile celebrity attorney.
Joe Tacopina.
Joe Tacopina.
Joining me now, Joe Tacopina. He's the attorney for Alex Rodriguez.
He feels just as comfortable in front of a TV camera as in front of a jury.
A scorched earth investigation was conducted, and the lack of evidence is resounding.
The evidence in this case points to a well-organized, meticulously planned execution of a murder.
Is that a fair description of you? Were you somebody, if you were going to do something, you were going to do it all the way?
Correct. And I would counter that argument with, if that's the case, then I would have been sure to not include blankets that could be traced to me, my own luggage. I don't get to be an evil genius and an idiot at the same time.
They're not going to be able to tell you where William McGuire was killed, how he was killed, when he was killed.
The defense were really trying to play to the jury that Bill was a major gambler and he may have owed thousands and thousands of dollars.
He was a big gambler because he gambled beyond his means. When you have money out on the street and you're behind and you're not making payments, you know what happens? You get shot here and you get shot here.
As prosecutors start laying out what they believe Melanie McGuire did to Bill, it all starts with something they found in his car after it was processed in Atlantic City.
When investigators first recovered Bill's car, they found a bottle of chloral hydrate, a red liquid, and also a syringe in it.
State's Exhibit 983. Do you recognize that?
Yes, that's the vial we dispensed the liquid in.
Chloral hydrate is, have you ever heard the term slip somebody a Mickey? It's the Mickey. It's what it is. It's almost like a knockout drug.
They do a lot of investigating on this chloral hydrate, and eventually they find out that it was purchased the morning that Bill disappeared.
Somebody dropped off this prescription for chloral hydrate at the Walgreens pharmacy, which is just down the road from where Melanie's children went to preschool.
But the prescription pad was that of Dr. Brad Miller, who was Melanie's boss. So the light bulb goes off, and they're thinking right away, clearly, Melanie had access to this prescription pad. She used it, she filled it.
Chloral hydrate was necessary for this defendant to have control, and even more importantly, it was necessary to her that Bill McGuire had no control. Dr. Miller looked at the prescription and he said, "That's not my signature, and it appears to be Melanie McGuire's handwriting."
Prosecutors also focused on what they said Melanie was doing in the days before her husband's disappearance. For that, they looked at the McGuire's home computer.
We had it forensically examined, and it really was just astounding seeing what the internet searches were for. Can you describe the searches that you recovered?
How to purchase guns illegally, how to commit murder, and undetectable poisons was searched.
It didn't look good. It looked like someone was searching how to, sedate someone or how to kill them.
I'm a nurse. I was a nurse. And I don't need to look up things like that. If I wanted to look for something like that, I have a PDR, Physician's Desk Reference. I have a book that I can look in that doesn't leave an internet history.
But both Melanie and Bill used this computer. So it's really hard to figure out who was searching these things.
Now, you have absolutely no idea of knowing who actually conducted the searches that you talked about, correct?
No, I don't.
One of the things we can say for certain is that your husband didn't commit suicide. He didn't shoot himself. He wasn't able to carve his own body up. And yet there's a suggestion from the defense that some of the online searches were things that he was in fact doing, not that you were doing.
It wasn't me.
Although investigators found no physical evidence in the McGuire's home, they did find something significant in Bill McGuire's car.
After Bill's car was recovered in Atlantic City, our criminalist was able to locate several pieces of small flesh. These pieces of flesh are an artifact of Bill McGuire's body being disarticulated. The phrase was used, human sawdust.
Human sawdust is a term that did not exist until this case, as I understand it.
I found particles that, to me, look like it could be possibly human tissue.
DNA results indicated that the flesh belonged to Bill McGuire.
What this really was a few pieces of microscopic skin cells that were a little bit deeper than the skin we passively shed.
Could those tissues, the tissue that you looked at, be shed from a live human being?
It cannot be shed from a live human being. It's not a typical shedding process at all.
Their theory was that this nurse, who was kind of so meticulous, had somehow just forgotten to wipe the bottom of her shoes, that she accidentally tracked these human sawdust particles of Bill's body from the house to the car.
Thank you, Your Honor. There were 81 witnesses in 7 weeks. Good morning, Dr. Miller.
Good morning.
Dr. Miller was the testimony that everyone was most anticipating. He was going to be the big star of the trial.
I was having an affair, and my whole life turned upside down.
Were you in love with the defendant?
Do you want to call your next witness, please?
Yes, Your Honor. The state calls Dr. Bradley Miller.
The most anticipated day of this trial is when the man whom Melanie McGuire had a 3-year affair with Dr. Bradley Miller took the stand.
Everybody knew that that was the prosecution's star witness, and the court was filled.
And when you saw him, what was your feeling?
How could you? How could you?
Dr. Miller was in a very difficult spot. He and his family had gone through a very difficult time, and it was just made clear to him, just take a deep breath and make sure you tell the absolute truth.
Can you describe to the jury what was your relationship with her?
We worked together. She was an excellent nurse. She took very good care of the patients. They all loved her.
Sir, did there come a time when your relationship with Miss McGuire got more intimate?
Yes, it did. It was towards the end of her second pregnancy. She was about 38 weeks pregnant. And before she went on maternity leave, we had oral sex in the office.
So not proud of that.
It has to be pretty hard to hear it come out in court.
Hard for me to hear it, hard for me to think, oh my God, my parents are hearing this, my 84-year-old grandmother is hearing this.
Were you in love with the defendant?
Yes, I was.
Had the two of you discussed future plans together?
Yes, we were hoping to be together in the future.
If we do make it through this, I'll just have to take whatever money I can get and get away.
With Dr. Miller on the stand, prosecutors were able to score some points because there were certain things that Melanie never told Dr. Miller.
Did the defendant ever tell you that she purchased a gun?
No, ma'am. I had no knowledge of her purchasing a gun, no.
Did the defendant ever tell you that she went to Atlantic City and parked her husband Bill's car at the Flamingo Hotel?
No, she did not.
Did there come a time when the defendant shared with you that she had done that?
Yes, and I asked her, well, why didn't you tell me this sooner? And she told me that she didn't want me to be upset, that she's going back to find Bill, to bring him back, and rekindle the relationship.
We looked very closely at Dr. Miller. There was no evidence connecting him with this crime.
This is in reference to consensual recordings between Brad Miller and Melanie McGuire.
You agreed to consensually record a conversation with the defendant.
Yes, I did.
Prosecutors really wanted the jury to hear those intercepted calls so they could get a sense that maybe her desire to be with him was the motive for the murder.
During the calls, Dr. Miller spoke about their future together, probably prompted by detectives.
After a divorce, and she gets half the money, I mean, it'd still be something to live on.
The understanding between us had always been that the children came first. And he starts talking about divorce and a future and moving forward, and I even say on the tape, why are you talking like this all of a sudden?
I'm confused because you've been the one to stress to me that we have to wait and see how everything plays out.
The defense was also able to score some points with those recordings, which called into question Dr. Miller's character.
At the time of those secret recordings, he was still having an intimate relationship with her.
After you tape recorded her, sir, you then had additional intimate relations with her, correct?
Yes, sir.
Did you tell her that, by the way, that you had tape recorded her?
No, I did not.
I think that was damaging to his character and was a very big turnoff to the jury.
Have you ever had contact again with Dr. Brad Miller?
No. No. After the day he testified, I haven't laid eyes on him since.
You have no desire?
It's tough. That was a tough betrayal to swallow.
What matters is whether the state, and the burden is on me and I welcome it, whether the state has proved each and every element beyond a reasonable doubt. When you combine the computer searches, the prescription for chloral hydrate on prescription pads that the defendant used, and then you have the victim found inside their matching luggage, the bullets consistent with the gun that she purchased.
It was a mountain of evidence. There's no question in my mind that she did it. I also don't believe that she acted alone.
Now, who helped her?
And Patty Precioso told the jury that there was a very, very good chance that Melanie had an accomplice.
Although he was never charged, investigators took a hard look at Melanie's stepfather, Michael Caporero.
The prosecutor needed somebody, so they focused in on me. Anything they wanted, we gave them. We gave them DNA, we gave them hair samples. I had nothing to do with anything involving that crime.
You don't need the precise when. You don't need the precise where.
You don't have to find that she pulled the trigger. You don't have to find that she had hands-on physically in regards to his death. Well, boy, that leaves a lot of speculation out there for the jury. You can't guess someone into prison for the rest of their life.
The jury goes into deliberation, and Melanie and her family are waiting on pins and needles.
I was very concerned. I think we all as people like to believe that if someone was capable of committing this type of murder, that the person who did that would look like a monster. But sometimes killers look just like Melanie McGuire.
The day the verdict was read, the atmosphere in the courtroom was just electric.
Has the jury reached a verdict in this case?
Yes, Your Honor.
How do you find as to the count of the indictment charging Melanie McGuire with the murder of William McGuire?
Guilty.
I just remember seeing her collapse.
I remember grabbing Joe's arm, and I remember feeling my legs just kind of go out from under me.
She's alternating between, I didn't do it.
Just beginning for us now. We'll never give up. We will never, ever give up for her until the truth comes out.
On direct appeal, we examine the murder conviction of Melanie McGuire.
This is a prepaid call from Melanie McGuire, an inmate at Edna Mahan Correctional Facility.
All right. Obviously, Melanie's been convicted. She's exhausted all of her appeals at this point. So how did the idea for this podcast come about?
Melanie McGuire was looking to speak with someone about her story because she had done really poorly in the court system, and I think she was frustrated. And after visiting with her the first time, I was like, this is a story. This is important.
I expected the worst, and what I got was just one step shy. They give the verdict, parole eligible at the tender age of 101.
It was very difficult. It was reliving it. This was the first time somebody was basically saying, we hear you.
What'd you say? Let's get to the juicy part.
I want to know, do you think she is innocent or guilty?
In the end, I believe that Melanie McGuire was wrongfully convicted.
So you believe an innocent woman is behind bars right now?
Absolutely. I believe this is a case of a wrongful conviction.
So let's talk about some of the questions you raise in your podcast, and let's begin with the gun.
The gun to this day has never been recovered.
One of the key witnesses for the prosecution was the forensic ballistic expert.
So these are two discharge bullets. They're referred to as a .38 caliber lead wad cutter bullet.
Is it possible that the gun Melanie bought is not actually the murder weapon?
I think it's probable.
No one plugged the serial number of my gun into a website to find out what the specifications were. Apparently each gun makes something called lands and grooves.
Lands and grooves are rifling characteristics that are machine pressed into the barrel of a gun. And when the bullet passes through the barrel, the same number of lands and grooves are going to be imprinted essentially onto that bullet.
There were 5 lands and grooves that my weapon was said to have made based on the company's website. The bullets that came out of my husband had 6 lands and grooves.
It was a mistake on a gun manufacturer's website. We were not gathering evidence from a gun manufacturer's website. The evidence that was at trial was from ballistic experts.
But the website was updated.
It was.
After this trial to incorporate the possibility that it could have 5 or 6.
I thought that was questionable. I think it's very questionable that for years historically it says one thing and then it's updated right after.
Let's talk about the garbage bags.
The prosecution Had an expert that said that the garbage bag in which Bill's body was found in was consistent with the garbage bags that came from Melanie's apartment.
You can see these lines here. There's a straight line here, this sort of smooth line. There's also two other lines close together in basically the exact same position. This indicates that these two bags were made at the same facility on the same line within a very close proximity of time.
He ran tests, but he didn't do all the tests that you actually need to definitively say whether these bags matched. Even his own data shows that they probably weren't the same bags.
Well, there are always other tests that can be done in any analysis. Based on the testing we had conducted and the results that I observed, I felt competent at that time to conclude that the bags were produced during the same run.
They put on a really good show. And I think when you have props, two garbage bags, oh wow, those do look alike. And so what the jurors are listening to sounds like fact, when in reality, it's just someone's expert opinion.
There is something else that's significant that you think the jury should have heard more about that was found inside those suitcases.
If you look through the lab reports, page upon page upon page, white hair, brown hair, black hair, animal hair. I think that's indicative that there was animal hair where the dismemberment took place of Bill's body.
You mentioned that you found some animal hairs. Did you find anything that you considered of evidential value?
No.
And they looked high and low to connect Melanie to some pet. And once they found that there was no way to connect Melanie to these pet hairs, it became not of evidentiary value.
Why is that? Simply because they don't match your suspects?
Those hairs should have been tested because that's a huge question mark.
Melanie did not incapacitate, shoot, use a saw to dismember her husband. You know how hard it is to cut through bone? It is physically exhausting. And also, if the crime scene didn't happen there and she's home with her children all night, where is this happening? There are just too many holes in this story.
In this case, with the mountain of evidence against her and a very complex plan, I submit to you it's amazing we know as much as we do. This was a murder trial. It wasn't a contest to see who could outsmart the investigators, and if someone is smart enough to successfully hide a crime scene, that they win.
Did you find any evidence that exonerates Melanie, that proves her innocence?
I wish we did. I had hoped we would. I still think that we might get a tip in that direction.
What do you say to the people at home who watch this and say, how dare she talk from prison and bring this all back up again? Enough pain has already befallen her husband's family, her own sons.
There's a murderer walking around. Even if we discount what's happened to me, the killer is out there. And it's not me.
She had about as good a counsel as money could buy. She certainly had a fair and impartial jury. The fact of the matter is sometimes the evidence is such that your attorneys, no matter what you can pay them, they simply cannot overcome what you've done. So she can say whatever she wants. She's a liar and she's a killer.
Today your boys are young men?
They are.
Is there anything you'd want to say to them?
There will always be questions about this case that we may never have the answers to, like if Melanie McGuire did kill her husband, why did she drive more than 300 miles to get rid of his remains in the Chesapeake Bay? His friend John Rice has a theory.
Bill did want to move down here onto Virginia Beach. After a time, he gave up on that idea. So it almost seemed like a vindictive thing on her part to drive him down. Oh, you want to go to Virginia Beach? Here you go.
Why was it important for you to tell this story on your podcast?
A lot of people who are convicted, they'll go through the appeals process, but they won't prevail. If we can investigate this, provide any type of assistance, we're possibly remedying some of the harshest parts of our system.
There are times when podcasts and media can shine a light where what the government did was not right. This is not one of those cases. A 39-year-old man lost his life before he got to see his children grow up.
You have 2 little kids.
Yep. That's the hardest part. Knowing that when I see my children, when I hug them goodbye, it could be the last time.
Ultimately, the courts would award custody to Bill's sister, Cindy Lagosh. Melanie has had no contact with them.
Today, your boys are young men?
They are.
Is there anything you'd want to say to them?
Make up your own mind. Don't accept what you're just being told on the surface. Dig.
What is your level of hope that one day you might walk out of here?
I'm terrified to hope, because to have it thwarted in here, it's absolutely soul-crushing.
Bill McGuire was the father of 2 small children. He was a brother, he was a friend, and his life got cut short.
I think Bill deserves to be remembered as a fantastic friend, a dad who loved his boys. He didn't deserve this. Nobody deserved